Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
That's the song. If you know what that song's from, then you are doing the same thing that Josh and I are doing on their off time. On our off time.
It's because no one can go to work and that game is like a job.
Yeah, it's actually more working. Every time I woke up this morning, I was like, I gotta take a shower, I gotta get breakfast.
I gotta water my
check
plants.
my crops. But it was raining, so I was like, sweet, the game did it for me.
Oh, that game causes me anxiety because I get home and I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, this, and this. I have chores.
How's it going, everybody? What's up? You are watching / listening to the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
Oh boy, we got a lot.
We got a lot of cards in front of us here. This is our Commander 2020 set review. The last episode, we talked about all the new legendary creatures, all the new cards that could be your commander in the set. And this episode, we're talking about every single one of the new cards from C20 that go in the 99.
Yes, and it's, well, as you can tell if you're watching the video, we have a big pile of a lot of stuff in front of us, so there's a ton to get to. Now, obviously, after we talk about some of these cards, you're going to want to pick some of them up. And the best way to do that is, of course, by going and using our affiliate link at cardkingdom.com/commandzone. Right now, more than ever, it's really important to support the businesses that are deemed non-essential to the world, but essential to us Magic players. And Card Kingdom has been our go-to for a long, long time for good reason. They're an awesome company, and they have everything that you need for Magic singles, sealed product, and all that stuff. And if you're going to buy Magic cards anyway, use our affiliate link, support our show, support a great company. And hey, we'll see you there.
Yeah. I'm definitely pre-ordering my precons from Card Kingdom. There's a bunch of stuff from the main set, all kinds of stuff to make sure that you get on your list right now. Another way to support all of our content is by supporting UltraPro products. You know, all of these cards, every single one is in an UltraPro sleeve, because the first thing we do when we get these decks from Wizards is we sleeve them all in Eclipse sleeves, make sure that all the cards stay in really good condition. We need them looking pristine for camera. We know that everybody out there values their collections. Your cards are valuable. UltraPro is the best company out there to protect your game pieces, to protect your stuff. They're the ones we trust. They're the ones you should trust. And the final way to support all of our content is directly if you go to patreon.com/commandzone. You can contribute right to all of our content, game nights, this podcast, everything we do. You get all kinds of perks, like chatting with Jimmy and I on Discord each and every day. Also getting to see game nights earlier than anybody else. Going over to patreon.com/commandzone if you want to help support this channel, especially like Jimmy said, during this time. It's a little uncertain for a lot of businesses like ours. Yes. Everybody that has joined our Patreon recently, you're the best. You are helping us out so much. And
we shout out one lucky patron every single week, so that this week's episode is dedicated to Kyle Carrasco.
Kyle. You definitely rock.
Yes. Oh, not to mention the Discord's got tons of other people in it too. Other people from our community. They're all really awesome, really kind. They'll answer questions, help you out with your decks.
Yeah, we got a lot of like veteran deck brewers in there. People
CEDH
that other
players,
content creators are in there and stuff. So yeah, you definitely get a lot of help out on deck building and just questions you have, and just a lot of good times, a lot of yucks to be had. All right,
yuck it up.
Let's get into it here. Our C20. It's the new card set review, I guess. There's a bunch. We're gonna go through every single card, at least talk about it a little bit. Some are not that interesting, so we won't spend a lot of time. I just wanted to make one note. We're only discussing the new cards from C20 in this review. So there are reprints, obviously, which we've already talked about a little bit in the upgrade videos. We're not going to touch on here. And also, we're not going to talk about the new cards. This is the first time this has ever happened.
Yeah, it's really wild.
The cards that they're technically new to all us Magic players, but they're from the Ikoria Lair of Behemoths, the standard legal set.
Yeah, but they just happen to be in the precons as well, because there's a mutate deck and a counters matter deck.
So we're going to cover those cards if we think that they are actually going to matter in Commander in our set review for Ikoria Lair of Behemoths, which is coming up. It's going to be set review around here. So
endless.
Let's get into it. There are two new cycles in the C20 product, and there's one for each monocolor, and they're two cycles. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
The first one is kind of like the force of cycle.
Yeah, basically cards you can cast for free. These are the ones that got us the most excited when we first saw them. Our eyes all opened collectively. And they're basically cards that you can cast for free if your commander is under your control. So it's on the battlefield, and you just dispel, just ignore the CMC up top. It's free.
The first time when we were playing, because we literally got these decks, sleeve them up, sit down and play without really looking through them because that's always fun.
Yeah.
And the first time one person cast these, and I think it was might have been the green one.
Yeah.
Where we were like, wait, what? And we all had to grab it and read it. Are you sure?
Yeah. Wait, why can you do that?
Free?
You were tapped out.
Yeah. So pretty sweet. Okay,
let's go right through them. The black version of these spells is called Deadly Rollick. 3 and a black for an instant, and then all of the cards have this text. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. And exile target creature. Instant speed, exile target creature for free should you control a commander.
Doesn't even have to be your commander. If you stole somebody else's commander.
Yeah, and I think they say a commander because I guess partner commanders that come in the set.
There are partners in this set.
Yeah, but still, this is a 0-cost exile target creature. It's better than Slaughter Pact.
I mean, yeah, it's in black too. Black doesn't get a ton of exile creatures. Yeah. There's a little bit, but not much.
And usually at like 6 CMC
or
limited, right?
There's definitely no free ones. This is this if your deck plans to have its commander out for most of the game, like is the commander is important to it, which most decks are. This is a staple now, right?
Yeah, this absolutely is a staple. Even at 4 mana to exile a target creature, it's not the worst. If you're in mono black, again, this is an effect that you don't have that much access to. And in general, always good to have an exile effect for its single target removal at 4 mana. So not bad just by itself either.
That's the worst case scenario. I think, you're looking at like 80% of the time you're going to cast this for 0.
Yeah, and get people, right? You're tapped out, you pass the turn. No one's going to see this coming unless they know that you're the kind of player that likes to run Slaughter Pact.
Yeah,
and this has no tax on your
now
upkeep.
They might, but
now
like,
they might, yeah.
It might take a little while to filter in, but I think this whole cycle from now on, you're gonna have to think twice when somebody's tapped out.
Yeah, and people I think will purposely tap out to hide it in their hands and know that they have some play at least.
Yeah, that's one of the things when you're playing, and I think with all of these, which is a lot of times you have an answer, you don't want to tap out because you want to have your answer open in case. And these all allow you to just play normally and tap out and still have your answer.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. All right, the red one is called Deflecting Swat. It's 2 in a red for an instant. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. And it says, you may choose new targets for target spell or ability. So it's a misdirect.
Again, instant speed misdirect. Obviously, it has to be instant speed here. Red, also very good at stealing creatures in those colors. This is the active treason colors. And so, again, if you control a commander, you can steal an opponent's commander, and then when maybe they try to steal it back or remove it, you just deflect it.
Well, and a lot of times the thing they're going to remove is your commander, and that's the thing you want to protect. I think this one is particularly good because that thing that you want to protect is actually turning on this card a lot of the time. This is a little more conditional than Deadly Rollick, I would say. I mean, obviously, Deadly Rollick, you have to have a creature that you want to kill out there, but this has to have a targeted spell, like a board wipe.
Not gonna work.
This does nothing against it. But at the same time, a counter spell. We've seen, we saw in that sort of quote-unquote famous moment in Game Night's history where Rachel and I had a counterspell where but nobody was in blue. Yeah, she used Imp's Mischief to change my counterspell to target the Imp's Mischief, and you could do the same thing with Deflecting Swat. So you could counter a counterspell kind of with this.
Yeah, and even if, you play these, I played these kinds of cards before, Misdirection, and they don't often, sometimes you'll be like, it's just a dead card.
Yeah,
this is way better than the dead card because you can still cast it for free.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, Misdirection you can cast for free too, but Misdirection also is a little bit more complicated in that you can only choose a spell that has 1 target.
Yeah.
So this one you choose new targets.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, geez.
It actually opens it up a little bit because I've had that happen with Misdirection where I've got it in my hand and somebody casts a spell that targets 2 things, and you're like, Curtain's Call, and you're like, crap, I can't use Misdirection here, but this would be able to do it. So
flipping the switch on the Curtain's Call would be very absurd.
I mean, it's a time stretch that you really want to catch, right?
Target player takes a new. Yeah, you're right. I always forget new extra turns usually target players. All right, next up is the white version. It's Flawless Maneuver, 2 and white for an instant. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Generally, a pretty good effect against board wipes. And again, for 0 mana, if you're tapping out, casting all your stuff, and oh great, they're gonna board wipe, they're gonna get rid of this thing that cost me all my mana to cast. Oofta.
Yeah, and then white decks often want to have like big board states.
Yeah.
Lots of tokens, or like a couple of really big creatures. Like they're the combat color, so they need stuff to stick on the table. So I think this is like good. I wish it said permanents or maybe non-land permanents.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think they don't want to say permanents so that you can't like Armageddon protect your stuff. But non-land permanents would work because I would like to save my artifacts and enchantments too in white. I think that would make it a little bit more broad because this is more narrow even than the other two, right?
Yeah, I mean, they all have their own narrow case scenarios, but this one I'd say is definitely the least useful, except in the face of a board wipe. Deflecting Swat's any spell, right? That targets something.
Well, it doesn't work against board wipes.
Right. But Flawless Move is pretty much just board wipes, or like if someone's trying to do a destroy target creature spell, you can maybe save one thing with it.
Wouldn't work against Exile, which a lot of stuff uses. Like, that's the thing about giving everything indestructible is there's not a lot of mass Exile, but there's a lot of pinpoint Exile. Usually people don't go to just straight destroy one thing, right? It happens sometimes. I think this is good and will go in a lot of decks. It's definitely not going in every white deck. And I guess we didn't talk about that for Deflecting Swat. I don't think that's going in every single red deck, but it can go in a high percentage.
Yeah, and maybe they'd say it's only creatures you control because white is obviously played in other decks. And so if you start doing that in an Esper deck that's all artifact based, then Flawless Mover's power level spikes through the roof in terms of how good it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, the next one, I think Consensus is the best one, right?
Yeah, it's absurd.
And of course, it's in blue. It's Fierce Guardianship. 2 and a blue for an instant. If you control a commander, you may cast the spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell.
What? Force of negation?
Yeah, it's just straight up Force of negation.
What?
It's really, really good. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it.
It's so much better than giving a creature it's indestructible because the thing you're doing to give... Why are you giving your creatures indestructible? Someone tried to kill it. Someone tried to board wipe it. Why don't they just counter the whole thing?
Yeah, it's way better, right? Because like I'll counter... Well, I guess there are some creatures that like blow up the board, but it's few.
Sure.
Usually that's a sorcerer and instant doing it.
Yeah.
And then it also works against Deadly Rollick. And it also works against... Thran Dynamo, or, I was going to say Paradox Engine, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it still exists in our hearts and memories.
Yeah, this one is, I mean, we know Force of Negation, Force of Will, free counter spells, extraordinarily strong.
Yeah, free any spells. I honestly think this is pushed a little too hard too. I think it would have been fine if it was like a redirect similar to what Deflecting Swat is.
Yes.
Because that's something that blue could do, or if it's like bouncing creatures or getting things off the board.
Or I think it would be a lot better if it said counter target creature spell.
Yeah.
That would have been like fine. This to me is probably the chase card in the entire set. It's probably going to be the most expensive, quote unquote, not counting maybe the legendary creatures. Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to go in like every blue, like any blue deck that is going to have its commander on the table like a high percentage of the time could run this card.
Yeah. And
it'll do stuff in every single game.
If you run a negate in your deck, this is pretty much a much better version of it just on its face. I mean, the one extra mana, again, at its worst, like Deadly Rollick, again, at its worst is still not bad. Yeah. I think Deadly Rollick will go of the 4 weeks. Well, let's read the 5th one, then we can rank them. I won't start ranking before we've read them all. All right, the 5th one is the green one, obviously. It's Obscuring Haze, 2 and a green. If you control a commander, you may cast the spell without paying its mana cost. Instant, as always. Prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. So it's a fog in a way, but a more conditional fog, specifically that it's about the creatures your opponents control. So it can be one of those things where you swing in, they put a bunch of blocks up, boom, you play Obscuring Haze, and only your creatures are doing damage. But pretty much just a fog.
Yeah, it's better than a fog. It's quite a bit better, I think. Just the ability to use it on offense, or even still eat some of their creatures on defense. Yeah. Like, that's not always going to come up, but it is upside. Like, that's never going to be a downside, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I like fogs. I think that they're underrated in Commander because the general way that Commander works is you don't get chipped away at with damage. Like, you do take 2, 3, 4 here, but generally it's huge chunks. It's all one attack.
Crater of Behemoths, basically.
Yeah, and this saves you in those moments. And the fact that if you have a regular fog, you kind of got to hold up mana because you don't know when that moment's going to come. Mm-hmm. This one, you don't even have to do that part of it. So I like this card quite a bit. I think it's quite strong.
I'd say the only downside to all of these is, like, Obscuring Haze, someone removes your commander pre-combat.
Yeah, definitely possible.
And that's the main downside. It's like, I'm planning to play this spell
You could
free,
still do it.
Like,
in response, right? Just be like, okay, well, clearly something bad's happening here. Maybe it's obscured the haze is obscured. Maybe it's maybe they do it and it's not clear at that moment they're about to cast Craterhove for something and you wouldn't know to cast it. But you could technically still use Obscuring Haze in that moment.
Yeah, it just kind of gets rid of the got him part of the effect.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at all 5 of these. and rank them. I think we both agree the blue one is by far ahead of the rest.
And then the black one is probably the most useful outside of that. And then it's between white and red.
See, I would put green third.
Really?
Yeah. And then I would put red and then white. That's how I would do it. I would go blue, black, green, red, white.
I kind of like white's ability in general. I'm a big fan of giving your creatures indestructible. So I'd probably go blue, black, white, green, red. I've never really had much luck with it. You may choose new targets for target spell or ability. But then again, I've never cast it on a time stretch. So maybe the first time I do that, Deflect and Swap moves up a couple slots.
Yeah. When it lands, it's devastating, misdirection.
Yeah.
Because it's the same as stealing their spell and getting a spell yourself. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. And later in the game, it can be insane. But it doesn't work on everything, right? Expropriate. It doesn't do anything. That doesn't target anything. Yeah. I don't like the white one that much just because it's very specific to only certain kinds of decks.
True. I mean, Obscuring Haze, I think, has similar effects, but at least you can use Obscuring Haze to save your life occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, that can go in any deck. In any deck, you can say, well, I'm worried about getting attacked by creatures. That's going to happen. You build your deck to worry about, that's like Propaganda or something goes in a deck. Well, Obscuring Haze could go in that deck, right? Because you're worried about creatures attacking you.
Maybe I like Flawless Maneuver more because in the decks where you are going to have your commander out and you want indestructible effects, it's going to be good. But
yeah, Flawless Maneuver might help you win more as far as seal the win.
Yeah.
More, right? You get a big board and you're like, okay, and it's going to be safe because I can save it from a board wipe. Yeah.
That's the only thing that can stop me right now. Yeah. Which often is the case, by the way, in Commander, which is the only thing that's making me lose the game is a board wipe.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. Okay, let's go on to the next cycle, which we won't talk about for very long. This is the impetus cycle.
It's the cards we removed from every single precon in our upgrade videos.
Yeah, so this is the sort of curse aura every year that for whatever. There must be a type of player out there that likes this kind of card that I never come into contact with because they always seem to design these and we always say take them out and I never see them on the battlefield. Parasitic impetus is the black one. And they're all kind of formatted like this. So this one's 2 and a black for an enchantment aura. It says enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. So goad means it attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. And then whenever enchanted creature attacks, its controller loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So all of these give a stat buff. They're all no, they're not even all +2/+2. One's +3/+3 and one's +1/+1. They all give a stat buff and goad the creature. And then they all have a ability beyond that. On the black one, obviously, it was when the controller attacks, you gain 2 life and they lose 2 life, which means if you put this on your own creature, you'll just break even.
Yep.
The red one, whenever the creature attacks, you make a treasure token.
Similar to Curse of Opulence, I think is what it was.
Yep. The blue one, whenever enchanted creature attacks, you scry 2. Remember, it has to attack 2 because that's what Goad also says.
Yeah.
The green one's really interesting. Enchanted creature must be blocked if able. So, and then the white one is the most confusing, but it's actually good. It says whenever enchanted creature attacks, each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents gets +1/+1 until end of turn. The white one's the most likely to go on your own creature because it'll pump your whole team when that creature attacks because you can't attack yourself, so you're always attacking an opponent.
Yeah, these are fun because obviously you're casting them on a big creature that your opponent controls, and the only person that creature can attack is not you, so your other opponents. However, if it is a 1v1 scenario, and we mentioned this in the precon upgrades, they can just attack you because it's if able.
Yep.
So I think it's fun to add a little play around the battlefield and the table, but it's generally, I think these cards are pretty weak. Martial Impetus, like we said again, is the only one I would consider playing because there's a upside to playing it on your own table, basically.
I mean, there are some decks now like the Pramicons and the Zonchas and the Thantises of the world that it's a category I'll call controlling the direction of combat.
Where it goes, yeah.
So there's more of those decks now, so maybe these go in there. Overall, not very exciting. You're not going to play these in most of your decks, so we're going to move on.
Yeah. But if you do find a really cool spot to play it, please let us know. It's just sort of the thing and the effect that we typically don't love. Because again, you're not actually getting rid of the creature. Instead of any of these goading cards, wouldn't you just rather play Deadly Rollick or a removal spell?
Or Disrupt Decorum, which just goads all of their creatures.
Yeah.
That's just, I think, going to be better most of the time. Because like I said, you're not usually chunked down for damage incrementally. It's usually like a couple little hits and then huge hits. Like
unless you're playing against a bunch of Voltron decks, but in which case they probably have Hexproof on those creatures. So your goading enchantments just look even worse.
Yeah, they're definitely ready for you to be messing with their creatures. And something that's going to stick around is worse because it gives them more time to find something to get rid of it rather than just exile the thing, make them recast it, and waste the mana.
True. Good point.
All right, let's move on to the colors. We're going to start with red, mostly because Jimmy organized the outline. So, red is first.
Put them first. We're also going to be doing something new where after each color, we're going to sort of break down how we thought the color did overall in the set, in the, throughout the history of Commander, what it really adds. So you'll get to hear our thoughts on that. And speaking of goad, this first card is the Agitator Ant. It's 2 and a red for a 2/2. It's a creature insect. And at the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature they control. Goad each creature that had counters put on it this way. So again, until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. Interesting. This is a similar effect to a card called Orzhov Advocist in white, which is, again, it's at the beginning of your upkeep, but each player can put 2+1/+1 counters on creatures they control. And then they pretty much have the same ability, which is they can't attack you or a planeswalker you control until your next turn. So again, it's incentivizing people to put a bunch of counters on their cards, and then as a result, they get bigger, but they have to swing at other people.
I mean, the Advocist is a little bit better because the ant itself, Agitator Ant, will get goaded, right? Or whatever you put 2 counters on.
Yeah. So you'll have to goad your
attack
own
with
creature. And it's each player may, so you don't have to necessarily, but if you do it to yourself, then that creature has to attack next turn. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas the Advocist, you don't have to attack with it.
Yeah.
But neither do your opponents, so I guess it. This, speaking of all of those decks that control combat, this seems like it's going to go in those ones, right?
Yep.
Pramicon, Zancha, Thantis, Gahiji.
Marisi,
yeah.
Breaker of the Coil.
Somebody pointed out Halar, the Fire Fletcher. This is actually pretty good. You want to? Okay, I'll read it. It's 1 red-green, 3 mana total for a 3/3 legendary elf archer. It says, has trample. Whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, put a 1/1 counter on Halar, the Fire Fletcher. Then Halar deals damage equal to the number of 1/1 counters on it to each opponent. So this is, never mind. This is not what I thought it did.
Well, you can at least put the counters on Halar and then, the Agitator.
Kick other spells?
Yeah, and just have a bunch of spells that kick. And red and green has a ton of ways to put +++ counters on it. Red actually doesn't have any. I would know this because Marchesa wants creatures in Grixis to have +++ counters on it, and it's very hard to do so. So Agitator Ant is one of the few ways now that red is able to give +++ counters, if not the only way. So at least Halar can get bigger and bigger thanks to the Agitator Ant. But this causes a lot of chaos around the table, and it makes some creatures very scary. So I don't know if this is the kind of card I would love to run.
The problem is they are just goaded for that next turn. So then they put the 2+1/+1 counters on, attack somebody else, but then the following turn, they could attack you with the creature that they made bigger.
Yeah.
As long as they didn't make it bigger again. So, I don't know. This is a little bit similar to the impetuses, I think, where it's like, it's cute. It reads as quote-unquote fun, but in reality, it's just, you don't know what you're going to get, what's going to happen with it, how it's going to advantage you enough to actually put it in your deck.
Yeah. Maybe you play in a group hug deck, who knows?
All right, the next one is Fireflux Squad. 3 in a red for a 4/3 human soldier with haste. Whenever a Fireflux Squad attacks, you may exile another target attacking creature you control. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So when this attacks, you exile another target attacking creature you control. Could be a token, doesn't say non-token. And then you basically, is it polymorph?
Yeah, you switch it for the next biggest thing or next thing off the top of your library.
You will hit a creature because you just go until you hit one, and then that creature comes in tapped and attacking. And it doesn't have that clause we usually see, which is sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
It sticks around.
So you just keep it, which is pretty powerful. And this has haste, so you're way likely to play this and actually use it, provided you have another expendable creature out there.
Yeah, so obviously I think any decks that run a lot of tokens is going to be good with this Krenko Mob Boss. And if you play Legion War Boss, it's a 3-mana spell that comes out before the Fireflux Squad that always creates a little friend with it that attacks. So that's a thing that you can do. You can also build a deck where your only other creature is a Blightsteel Colossus.
Yeah, or just, I like token decks because if you built the token deck such that most of the token creation wasn't on creatures, it was on sorceries and instants and artifacts and stuff, and then only put in a few really big creatures, then Fireflux Squad is likely to hit one of them, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you want to probably put cards in here that deal have a trigger when they deal combat damage to someone, because this is coming in out of nowhere. People aren't expecting it.
You won't get attack triggers. It comes in tapped and attacking?
Yes. So a card like Master of Cruelties, which is one favorite of Callie of the Vast players to cheat in, it says it can only attack alone. However, you can get around that clause with the Fireflux Squad.
Yep.
And when it has first strike and death touch, and whenever it attacks a player and isn't blocked, that player's life total becomes 1, and then Master of Cruelties assigns no combat damage to this combat. So if you can swing in with this and you know that there's someone that can't block, you run the Fireflux Squad, you kill the creature, and then boom, Master of Cruelties comes down, you can take someone's life total to 1 and then probably finish them off if they have no blockers.
I mean, if you had some top deck manipulation, which we'll talk about in a second, obvious in this deck, I guess we'll talk about it now, if you can get Scroll Rack top, Brainstorm, that kind of stuff to mess with your library. On turn 4, you can Master of Cruelty someone, and maybe they just don't have any blockers yet, right?
Yeah, you just win the game. And
I mean, you don't win the game. You just probably kill that player, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. This could be turn 3 even.
It could be turn 2 even, really.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to top deck manipulate in that amount of time, because you'd have to Soul Ring then play it.
Well, I think 3 is the earliest.
Okay.
Play
top. Mana
top
vault,
at the same time, yeah.
Okay, sure.
All right, there's the dream. And then everyone goes, "You're out of the game now. We're gonna kill you.
We're gonna kill you. You're scary.
Stop it.
A couple other cards: Balefire Dragon.
Yeah, that's a card that when it deals combat damage, it deals damage to each creature that player controls.
Okay, Tyrant steals all their artifacts. Blightsteel Colossus just kills them.
Steals the game, really.
Yeah. So having like big stuff that you can seed there for Fireflux Squad, I think it's a card in your 99 though. You're going to already want to be playing that style of deck that wants those cards, and then Fireflux Squad becomes good. You don't put those cards in your deck because Fireflux Squad is in your deck.
Yeah, Iroas, God of Victory is a combat-based deck, and the more important text is prevent all damage that will be dealt to attacking creatures you control. So Fireflux Squad is a perfect case in this one. Squee the Immortal, a card that you can endlessly sack to Fireflux Squad and always play for 3 mana. I think you're better off with token producers, though, in general for this kind of thing. But again, there are a lot of decks that do this. The Felon of the Third Path, the new Purphoros, are all decks that are like, please play huge creatures in this deck, cheat them out, and hit players in the face with them. Yeah,
new Purphoros is really good because it sneak attacks something out, so you've already got these Balefire Dragons and Hellkite Tyrants and stuff in it.
Yep.
So that's why Fireflux Squad probably just goes in that deck as another way to cheat huge things out.
Yeah, it's a fun card. I could see it seeing play in, again, creature-based decks that have big, scary threats. Red-green decks could see a lot of this card as well as Xenagos type stuff. And if you can manipulate the top of your deck with a Scroll Rack or a Sensitive Divining top, you're in much better shape.
Yeah. I think it's very strong when it's strong. It's just narrow, so it can't go like in every red deck.
Yeah.
You have to want big creatures and stuff, but pretty cool. All right, let's talk about the next one.
Next one is the Frontier Warmonger, 3 and a red for a creature human warrior 4/4. Whenever one or more creatures attack one of your opponent or a planeswalker they control, those creatures gain Menace or Menace until end of turn. So this is similar to the, hey, make everyone swing at other people, incentivize them to do things that aren't going to hurt you type decks. Not that exciting.
It's not even much of an incentive, right? How much more likely am I going to attack player A than player B just because I get Menace? What you're hoping is it'll open up some attacks that weren't there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I have Menace, so that makes...
Now it can do this.
Yeah. But in general, I think this is just too little of a quote-unquote bonus to really change much decision points for your opponent. They're still going to attack the player that is most advantageous for them to attack.
Also compare this to Fireflux Squad, both 4 mana cards. The Fireflux Squad has haste, can attack, and potentially cheat out a game-winning card or a player-eliminating card. Frontier Warmonger is just a 4 mana 4/4 that isn't that great.
Maybe they really, really like the Pramicon, Thantis, Zoncha style decks, because of the cards we've talked about like 13.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 of them, I think, are for those types of decks, because this is definitely, again, in a Gahiji Thantis type deck. So Wizards, for whatever reason, they think there's a lot of those decks. In my experience, those decks are fun. It's not incorrect, but there aren't very many of them. Yeah.
And they're also typically the kind of decks when they get played, I'm like, all right, that was the one time I'm going to be happy to play against a deck where I could only attack one person the whole time.
Well, and another problem with those decks is a lot of decks are not attack and creature based, and those decks don't work good against the spell types decks, the artifact based decks, because they don't affect them at all. And all these cards only work against creatures. So, yeah. All right.
Next one's really interesting.
Yeah, the next one's... It took me a while thinking about it before I decided what I thought about it. It's Lava Brink Floodgates. 3 and a red for an artifact. You tap it for red. So it's a 4-mana rock that taps for red.
Cool.
At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may put a doom counter on Lava Brink Floodgates or remove a doom counter from it. Then, if it has 3 or more doom counters on it, sacrifice Lava Brink Floodgates. When you do, it deals 6 damage to each creature. So you play this, you tap it for 2, and then it goes to your opponent, and they either get to put a doom counter on or take one off. There will be 0 at that point, so they can only
add.
Yeah, I guess they can remove even if there's 0, right?
Well, it's a may, so they don't even need to do anything.
Oh, right.
They can say like, I ignore the trigger, yeah.
Yeah. And then the players can kind of, in a weird way, negotiate and whatever to get this to 3 or keep it off of 3, depending on what the table wants.
Yeah. The problem is that it could just be gone by the time it gets back to you because you play it, you use it, and there's 4 players around the table. That's 3 upkeeps before it gets back to you. They can just put 3 doom counters on it, and then boom, it blows up and does 6 damage to each creature.
And if you play this and there's not like very many creatures out, like let's say, because it's turn 4, could be turn 3. Let's say there's no creatures or there's 1 creature. Maybe they just go, let's just cost them the card.
Yeah.
We just won't play any creatures. We'll each put a doom counter on it. Boom. And you basically just lost a card for nothing.
But it does only take 1 player to be like, nah, I'm not going to do anything, or I'm going to take a doom counter off.
Yeah.
And you get that choice as well when it comes back to your turn.
I wish it was a choice whether you sacrifice it.
Mm-hmm.
So then once it has 3 or more, you may sacrifice it, at which point, whatever. Just because I don't want to play a rock that says sometimes my opponents get to blow it up.
Blow it up, yeah. It's red ramp, which is really exciting, but it does the thing that Wizards has been doing, which is just like, we're going to make this have a bunch of conditions stacked onto it, so it's not as good as it could be. Which is a bummer because you never see that with,
Green cards. Yeah. They don't feel the need to like put a bunch of downsides on green cards. They're like, what other upsides can we put on this thing?
Yeah. Should this card get back to you, though, a card like Nesting Grounds, which is one we're going to mention a bunch today, so we're just going to read it once, adds a colorless mana. You can pay 1 mana and tap it, move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So if it does make it back to you, there are ways to manipulate the counters on it. There's also cards that do want to have Doom counters. These are things that have existed in the past. Eye of Doom, 4-mana artifact. When Eye of Doom enters the battlefield, each player chooses a non-land permanent and puts a Doom counter on it. And you can pay 2 and tap and sacrifice the Eye of Doom, destroy each permanent with a Doom counter on it. So, again, with Nesting Grounds and Eye of Doom, you can do some cute stuff. But if you have the Eye of Doom out and then play Lava Brink Floodgates, no one's going to let that card stick around.
Yeah, they're like, let's just put counters on and blow it up right now.
Yeah, please, never again.
It's a cute card, but I think that it's just too uncertain. I just would never play Lava Brink Floodgates.
Yeah. In general, you can play this in a Savin the Chronoclasm deck because it says prevent all damage that would be dealt to Savin the Chronoclasm, so at least your commander sticks around should you play it. Same with, this is an interesting one, Gerard Weatherlight Hero, the Eggs deck, wants cards to go to the graveyard so that you can bring them back.
Yeah, it says when Gerard dies, you exile it and return to the battlefield all artifact and creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So if you had a big board, played Lava Brink Floodgates, if they blow it up, or if you're able to manipulate the counters, blow it up yourself, then all the creatures would die. Well, that have 6 toughness or less, but yours would come back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not Gerard, unfortunately, but the Lava Brink Floodgates would also come back at the same time.
I put maybe like Stuffy Doll type stuff, that hit yourself type cards. Maybe those work because it deals damage to all of them. I don't know. Just reaching, just looking for stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if this card's amazing, but it is something new, so there is always a little bit to, there's a little credit to be paid there. Like, this is something we haven't seen before, which is like a 4-mana red mana rock with a weird semi-board wipe on it.
It's kind of like Armageddon Clock and a mana rock in one. I don't know. I don't know if those two things wanted to have a baby, but they did.
Anytime you see a card where you don't get to decide the outcome of the card, you're going to find that we're down on it in general.
Yeah, it's just too high variance. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yep.
Certain kind of decks do like that, but most decks don't.
Most decks don't, yeah.
All right, let's read the next one. It's Molten Echoes. 2 red for an enchantment. As Molten Echoes enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Oh, so this is just a tribal version of like Mirror March or something.
Yep, and it costs a little bit less, 4 mana. Obviously, you're going to want to choose a creature type that you have a lot of in your deck in general. Inala Archmage Ritualist is a wizard tribal deck that has a Eminence, where you basically, anytime another non-token creature wizard enters the battlefield under control, if Inala is in your command zone or the battlefield, you can pay 1 and you create a token that's a copy of that wizard. The token gains haste.
Basically the same thing.
Same
right?
thing,
but,
yeah.
You can't choose other tribes. You can only choose wizard, and it costs you mana, but it also works from the command zone.
Molten Echoes, I think you have to be playing, for the most part, in a tribal deck to really get the most use out of it.
Otherwise, I think you need 25 cards that have a certain tribe on it before you can play this card. Maybe 20 at the minimum.
Yeah, this does go infinite, however, Molten Echoes just by itself with Felidar Guardian. You can name either cat or beast, because when Felidar Guardian enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Well, guess what? You're going to have 2 Felidar Guardians thanks to the Molten Echoes creating a copy of it, and you can just bounce it again and just keep making more and more copies.
Right. The token comes in, flashes the original. It comes back immediately, not an end step, which comes in, makes a token, flashes, blinks the original.
Yeah, you want to blink the original
flashes,
because
blinks.
the Molten Echoes wants non-token creatures to enter the battlefield, but the Felidar Guardian, the original one's going to get flickered by the copies each time.
Whisperware Angel does the same thing.
Same. Weaver Angel.
Weaver, sorry.
Yeah. Whisper Silk Angel. Edgar Markov, again, same as Anala with an Eminence trigger. You're going to have a lot of vampires in this case, and then there is red in the deck. The Reaper King, these are all
double triggers.
Yeah, you're just getting a bunch of triggers. This card, I think, is interesting in general. It's very similar, like you said, to Flame Shadow Conjuring, Mirror March. If you're playing Omnath, Locus of the Royal, you can just, you're already going to have a lot of elementals in the deck, so you're going to be playing a lot of them. You're going to get more triggers off of elementals. Yeah, I'm excited about this card, but it's not crazy.
I think this one, again, like Fireflux Squad, is powerful when it's in the correct deck. Like I said, if you have 25 of a single tribe type, creature in your deck, and you're in red, I think this becomes very good. But the amount of decks where that's true is small.
Yeah, and I wouldn't play this card just because you have a Felidar Guardian in your deck. There are many ways to make that card go infinite.
Felidar, congratulations, everybody. We broke Felidar Guardian.
Yay.
A lot of cards do that.
You could probably ban it.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Yes, Spellpire Phoenix. 3 red for a 4/2 creature Phoenix with flying. When Spellpire Phoenix enters the battlefield, you may return target instant or a sorcery card with a cycling ability from your graveyard to your hand. And at the beginning of each end step, if you cycle 2 or more cards this turn, return Spellpire Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. Really wish it said to the battlefield. But
Phoenixes usually go to the battlefield.
Yeah, and there was another one recently where if you cast those spells, it just comes right onto the battlefield. This card, I think, is just, if you're playing a Gavi Nestwarden deck.
Do you even include that card? I think it's probably not as good as your top other 67 cycling cards.
Well, you do have blue and white in your deck. There's other cards to be playing instead of a Spellpire Phoenix if you're going to be playing the Gavi deck.
I mean, obviously it says the word cycling on it, so you think, it goes in the cycling deck, but I think it might not even be good enough for the cycling deck. It does Archaeomancer back a cycling card.
Yeah, but it's 5 mana.
Yeah.
And sure, you can get it back to your hand and do it again, but...
Maybe that's why it goes to your hand.
Yeah.
So you can cast it again and get another cycling card.
One. Yeah.
But that engine is so expensive.
So it could just go to the battlefield and do it too.
Oh, that's a really good point, actually.
Yeah. And you're in red and white. You have flicker abilities, right? Red, blue, and white for playing Gavi, and that is the cycling deck. So I think...
Well, it will work with Astral...
right.
Astral Slide, Astral Drift.
Types. Yeah. So maybe it is good enough if you have enough of those types of effects in there. But again, 5 mana, it's a lot. I would rather, again, play an Archaeomancer.
In most decks. I mean, obviously the cycling deck. Maybe it is good enough.
I mean, like Archaeomancer can also get back a Cyclonic Rift.
That's a really good point.
And you're going to probably play that in that deck too. So
that's a good point. All right, the next one is Surly Badgersaur. 3 and a red for a 3/3 creature Badger Dinosaur.
Roar.
Whenever you discard a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Surly Badgersaur. Whenever you discard a land card, create a treasure token. Boy. Whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, Surly Badgersaur fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Notice that last ability is a may ability, even though it doesn't say the word may, because it says up to 1 target creature. So you can have it fight 0 creatures.
This is like the Bone Miser in red kind of thing. The, Waste Nod of red.
Right. Of those abilities, the ones that really make your eyebrows raise is the one that says, when you discard a land card, create a treasure token.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Obviously, this is great with the Wheel of Fortune. This is very, very good, obviously, too, with Anya Falconwrath.
The wheelie deck, the wheelie good decks.
Wheelie good.
There's a lot of wheel decks out there, and this will go in those.
Yeah, if you're playing Tectonic Reformation, a card that I love, you're going to be cycling lands, and now that if you can get a treasure token as well out of it with the Surly Badgersaur, that's pretty sweet, actually. I'm a big fan of that.
There are a bunch of red commanders that, are now we've kind of come along to the point where discardy commanders, right?
Yeah.
Neheb the Worthy, one of yours.
Neheb Dreadlord Champion.
Yeah, 2 Nehebs want to be discardy. The new Chainer.
Nightmare Adept, yep.
Nekusar. I would call Lord Windgrace is almost a discardy deck because
totally.
The lands and with Surly Badgerstory creating the treasure tokens. I think actually this is probably the most broken in a Lord Windgrace deck because you just discard lands and still get mana out of the lands you're discarding. And Lord Windgrace is just constantly like cycling lands in and out of their hand, graveyard, and library and battlefield.
I like Seismic Assault. It's a red enchantment too. You can just discard the land card and then it does 2 damage to any target. So if you're getting mana back for doing that, it's pretty good.
This is a powerful card. It again is narrow in the decks it goes in, but I feel like I see a lot more of this type of deck. I see a lot of Lord Windgrace decks for one. There's probably more Lord Windgrace decks that I've seen than if you combine all the Pramicon, Thantis, Zancha decks together that I've ever seen. So
Windgrace just kind of does everything too.
Yeah. This is just added value for what everything Windgrace is doing, but it does work in Nekusar and stuff like that too. So
okay. All right, cool. So let's talk about Red as a whole. How do you think Red did here in the span of, we had 1 year to see what Red could come up with for Commander.
Well, they've got a big year ahead of them, right? There's Commander Legends and a bunch of other stuff coming out. But I think it did fine. There are some new toys, some okay stuff. It's mostly narrow stuff, right? There's nothing super broad. If you sort of lump in their Force of, the deflecting swat, the free misdirect, with Red, which I think you should.
That gives it like half a grade point.
Probably.
For every color.
Yeah. Well, for blue, it gives it a lot more. I think it's a little disappointing in that there's nothing that broad, and red is being one of the weaker colors. I think, like if green, when we're going to get there eventually, but if green doesn't have, a staple or anything, it's not disappointing. So, as a elementary school grading system, like limited resources uses, I think I would give red like a C.
I think I'll throw a hot C+ for them. Okay. I do like Molten Echoes, and I think Lava Brink Floodgates is interesting. None of them, again, are powerful.
Fireflux Squad.
Yeah.
Surly Badgersaur. Those are the three, I would say. Mana Echoes, Fireflux Squad, and Surly Badgersaur.
Yeah.
With Deflecting Swat, like those are the sort of 4 most powerful.
Yeah, but again, like what we're looking for here is, can red find a way to ramp better? Can red find a way to draw cards better? And these cards don't really answer that question very well, unfortunately.
Yeah, this doesn't alter anything for red as a color at all. It sort of slightly helps out a couple of specific decks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next color, which is black.
Maybe next time, red.
I mean, it's not, they didn't get an F. Like, it's fine.
True. Good job for not failing the class.
Right? Okay. Good job for passing.
Yeah.
That's not what my parents would say.
Flying colors. Oh, yeah, that's definitely not one. Dude, the first time I got a B, that house was about to fall down to the ground with how angry my parents were. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. Both my parents were teachers, so.
Yeah. Oh, that is.
Yeah, you could guess how fun that was. All right. Okay.
We know you could have done better.
The first, let's not even go there. Okay. The first card is Boneyard Mycodrax. 2 and a black for a star fungus. Boneyard Mycodrax's power and toughness are each equal to the number of other cards in your graveyard.
Creature cards, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Creature cards in your graveyard. Would be way better if it's just cards.
I know, right?
It has Scavenge for 4 and a black. So you can pay 4 and a black, exile this card from your graveyard, and then put a number of 1/1 counters equal to this card's power onto target creature. You can only scavenge as a sorcery. So later in the game, if your graveyard's really big and you have, 15 creature cards in there, then you can pay 5 mana and put 15 1/1 counters onto one of your creatures, or just onto a creature.
Yeah, the rate is actually pretty good on that as far as it goes. Scavenge is a really cool ability, I think, to stack onto this type of card. Before, Mortivore is the kind of card that, would do the same thing. However, Mortivore's power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So you need to have a deck that's really dedicated to make your own graveyard awesome. And then you can scavenge. And again, +1/+1 counters in black, hard to come by. So this is, again, a card that maybe Marchesa wants. But
maybe, yeah.
It's a maybe.
I just find it hard for a card that's just only power and toughness, no matter how big. And this is obviously not going to be that big. And especially early, it's 3 mana. One of the advantages of having 3 mana spells in your deck is you can play them on turn 3, which you can't do with this because they'll just die a lot of times. So yeah, I don't think it's very good. Because let's say it's a 3 mana 10/10. Is that even that impressive in Commander?
Nope.
I mean, it's fine, but
it'll work.
Yeah, but
it'll also get blocked by a 1/1.
And this is going to be a 3 mana 10/10 on turn 8, 7.
So you're going to want to, we'll just list off the graveyard-based commanders that you can play this in. Gerard, Golgari Lichlord, Sir Conrad the Grim, actually maybe one of the better places for this kind of card.
Oh yeah, that actually is a good place.
The Mimeoplasm, Sidisi, Brood Tyrant, Carador.
There's more. We won't list them all. Marin, maybe. I don't know. You probably won't play it in the Marin deck, though.
All right, that's about as excited I'll get for that card. All right, next up we have Daring Fiend Bonder, 3 and a black for a 5/1 creature human warlock with haste. Daring Fiend Bonder attacks each combat if able, and you can pay 1 in the black to exile Daring Fiend Bonder from your graveyard, and then you will put an indestructible counter on target creature. Activate this ability only time you would cast a sorcery. Now, this is actually a lot more interesting. I like this a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It's coming in, it's going to swing out, and it's probably going to get blocked and killed, but then only for 2 mana, you get to put an indestructible counter. It's one of those new effects that we've seen from Ikoria, which is ability counters.
And indestructible got to be one of the better ones, especially in Commander. Mm-hmm. You think about the other ways that you try and give your creature indestructible, and a counter is actually harder to interact with than almost all of them, right? If you put an aura...
Yeah, get rid of the aura.
Get rid of the aura. You put a Darksteel Plate, they might be able to return to dust the Darksteel Plate or something.
Or just bounce it.
Yeah. And so this is actually a pretty cool way to... get indestructible on something, and I think that indestructible is actually going to be a little more sticky than other ways to give indestructible. And it's a 5/1 with haste. It's going to bash in. It's big enough that they kind of can't just take it for very long.
Yeah.
Also, you could just mill it into your graveyard just for that effect, which is really good, like in the Sidisi type decks.
Yeah. This is really good in a Greven Predator Captain deck, I think.
It
It's a 5/1 because whenever Greven attacks, you can sacrifice another creature. You draw cards equal to that creature's power, 5, and you lose life equal to that creature's toughness, 1. And then you can pay 1 in the black to give Greven indestructible.
Which you definitely want to do. Yeah. No, that was the first thing I thought when I saw this. Was like, this is going in my Greven deck for sure.
Yeah. Again, Chanter Nightmare Adept, a card that we'll probably mention a couple more times, a card that, allows you to cast creature cards from your graveyards. So again, you can just keep getting back a 5/1 with haste. You'll be surprised how quickly that damage adds up. And also, it's going to almost guarantee to remove, let's say they don't have a good blocker for it, like a 1/1 or whatever, it's going to kill anything else pretty much that they can block with if they want to block it.
All right, let's pause here and talk about this next card because we're going to mention it a lot throughout this set review. And here's where it starts to really, you understand why Ikoria specifically.
It's like built for this commander, or this commander has just been waiting for this set to come
this
out.
moment. This is their moment. They only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow this opportunity.
Mom's spaghetti.
All right, Breyer, the walking grave. We've talked about it a few times before, but I'll read it one more time. It's black and a green, so 2 mana for a legendary creature, zombie elemental. It's a 1/1 with haste. But when Breyer, the walking grave, deals combat damage to a player, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So a 1/1 with haste for 2 mana. It's going to swing in and hit somebody when you play it. But also, the big text here, and this is really what's turned on by the ability counters. It says, counters remain on Breyer as it moves to any zone other than a player's hand or library. So as long as it doesn't get bounced or tucked...
And it can never get tucked.
And it can never really get bounced because you can always choose to put it into the command zone. So
Yep.
you never really have to worry about the counters getting taken off. Until now, this was just basically 1/1 counters. But now it gets to keep the indestructible counter from Daring Fiend Bonder.
Yeah. This is really powerful now. Breyer before was just kind of like a swing in and hit them really hard and hope that you can kill them with commander damage, or it just...
But it can be chumped. All kinds of problems with it. You put enhancements on it, but the enhancements themselves can be removed. Now
You put counters on it.
Double strike.
Yeah.
Indestructible, hexproof, and that stuff's going to stay on it basically forever.
Yeah, it's building a bigger and scarier Breyer each time. I think originally when they made this card, they wanted to say +1/+1 counters remain on Breyer, but they just said counters remain on Breyer.
Yeah, because they didn't have enough room and there weren't any other counters, so why do you have to put that other... Yeah, why do you have to put +1/+1 again?
This is my favorite kind of card in Magic where how they wrote it in the past, kind of like the Skull Clamp type thing. It's just it just gets better and better as time goes on because things will interact with it more based on the text and how it's written.
Yeah, it's like 15 years later, they make some new card or mechanic and all of a sudden this weird wording on an old card gets unlocked because they're like, wait a minute, these two words make this card awesome now.
Yeah. So Breyer very good with Daring Fiend Bonder. If you have an Atraxa deck, or you can proliferate the indestructible counters and then move them around with your nesting grounds, that's pretty cool too.
Did we talk about nesting? Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah. And we'll mention nesting grounds again, probably 3 or 4 more times.
Yeah, anything that moves around counters that aren't +1/+1 counters is going to be, have a lot of usage because of the ability counters in this set.
Yeah, blue and black are the ones that typically have been able to do this, like Leech Bonder, and we'll mention those cards later on as well.
I think mutate decks, this is a good card, and not because you can mutate onto it, because you can't, it's a human, but because you want to be able to protect your big mutate thing, and so being able to put the indestructible counter onto it just makes it feel more safe.
Yep, pretty nice.
All right, let's talk about the next one. It's called Dredged, themire. It's 3 and a black for a sorcery. Each opponent chooses a creature card in their graveyard. put those cards onto the battlefield under your control.
Ooh, 4 mana?
4 mana? Yeah, they
Even
get
if
to
you don't
choose.
get great creatures, it's still 4 mana for 3 creatures, right?
Yeah, it's 4 mana for 3 creatures. So if those are literally 1 mana creatures, you're still basically breaking even. And by the way, the only 1 mana creatures you're going to get are going to be great. They're going to be mana dorks and Deathrite Shamans and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's Commander. All their creatures are going to be good. Even if it's 3 Sakura Tribe Elders.
Dude, that's great.
this is better than Explosive Vegetation in that sense. The rate on this card is like so good. I can't believe this is 4 mana.
Yeah, and obviously, if your opponents don't have creatures in the graveyard, then this card sucks. But still, I mean, if you play this with a Scavenging Ooze, which allows you to exile cards from graveyards, or if you have your own Deathrite Shaman, you can actually control what comes out of the graveyard, and this card just gets better and better. So the bottom low end side of this is, very low. Obviously, 4 mana, everyone has no creatures in the graveyard, not great. But the top side and everything in between is looking really nice.
Think about Sepulchral Primordial. Now, you get to choose what creatures you get, but that card costs way more mana, and it's always good. And most of the time, that's all you get. I mean, it's awesome if you recur it, but like 1 creature from everybody is often like crazy good.
Yeah.
I think this card is pretty great. You probably want it in like a deck that's going to be able to, in some way maybe mill your opponents a little bit.
Sir Conrad.
Oh, Sir Conrad, it's so good. You're
another
already
card we're going to mention a bunch, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned online Command the Dreadhorde. It's a 4/black sorcery. You can choose any number of target creature and or planeswalker cards in graveyards. And Command the Dreadhorde deals damage to you equal to the total CMC of those cards, but you put them all onto the battlefield under your control. So you could do that and get rid of all of the cheaper little stuff and then play a Dredged themire type card. I think this is really good in Command the Dreadhorde in a black-white life gain deck because again, 6 mana, you can pull every single creature card out of a graveyard if you want.
Yeah, it's going to have a little variance, and you'll need to know your meta, but it's so efficient. 4 mana for this effect just seems very, very good.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. All right, next up we have Mind Leecher, the first instant of mutate we'll see in the new C20 cards. Then again, this is a mutate card that is specific to C20, so you won't see this in Ikoria or Standard. 4/black for a 5/5 creature nightmare. It has mutate for 4 in the black, so if you cast a spell for its mutate cost, you put it over or under target non-human creature you own. They mutate into the creature on top plus all of the abilities under it. So generally, this is a 5/5 with flying, going to mutate on top of something. Whenever this creature mutates, exile the top card of each opponent's library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. So again, lands count here because you can play the card. However, you can't do the thing, which is you can tap mana as though it was mana of any color. But,
you have to pay the specific colors.
Yeah, but this is, again, still pretty powerful. You do get to potentially ramp off of it. Not ramp, sorry. Get card advantage and draw those cards into your hand.
You're going to get at least 1 land probably off before.
If you get an artifact, obviously you can play it. If you're in a Send Triplets deck, you're already going to have a lot of mana rocks that allow you to tap for other colors. Interesting.
Yeah. It's like a one-time Gonti kind of.
Yep.
I mean, Gonti's very powerful, but having to pay the mana for the spells makes that a lot more limited.
It adds flying to a creature as well, should you want to mutate and make something even bigger and crazier. But it's 5 mana to do so, so it's going to be hard, I think, to play this and then cast and play those cards off other people's libraries unless they're lands or they're very low CMC on the turn that you play that.
Yeah. All right. The next one is Netherborn Altar, 1 in a black for an artifact. This one's really interesting. You can tap the Netherborn Altar, you put a soul counter on it, and then : So tapping it and putting the counter on it are part of the cost. And it says, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Then you lose 3 life for each soul counter on Netherborn Altar. So the first time you do this, you're basically paying 3 life instead of the commander tax, presumably. There's other instances where you might even do this before commander tax applies. We'll talk about that. But this kind of lets you pay life instead of commander tax, ostensibly. 3 life instead of 2 commander tax, which is pretty impressive. This helps a lot of decks out, I think, that are, where one of the ways to beat them is to kill their commander twice and make it prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
This can kind of help get around that.
Yeah, especially if your commander's going to get removed a lot and you're happy to pay the life. Again, Marchesa, yay, you want to have lower life totals. Or if you're in a black and white deck where you don't care.
You have got a lot of life.
A lot of life, right? You can just keep
keep
using the counters on Netherborn Altar. There's no maximum counters you can put on it. You just keep losing more and more life each time. You wrote this down. This is funny. I didn't realize that this doesn't work.
Right. So a lot of people were like, Solemnity is so good because Solemnity is an enchantment. This says 2 in a white. Players can't get counters, and counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments or lands.
Oh, so with Netherborn Altar, you can just use it for free, right?
That's what everybody thought. Like, oh, I could tap it, then a counter can't be put on it, so it can never lose the life. Unfortunately, putting the counter on is part of the cost, so Solemnity won't work. It actually makes it so Netherborn Altar does nothing.
You know what card does work, though? It's Nesting Grounds.
Here we go again.
Yay. So you can take the counter off and move it around.
Yep.
If you have Vampire Hexmage, if you're the kind of deck that plays that, you can use that to get rid of all the counters from a permanent.
Hex Parasite, same deal.
Same deal.
Power Conduit, again, we'll move counters around.
Yeah. So interesting.
Remove counters.
Remove counters, yeah. Yeah, this is, again, it's you want to play it in decks where you want to cast your commander a lot. So Skullbriar, again, a deck that you want to, because people are going to want to remove Skullbriar all the time.
Right. Kirik.
Yeah, Crick.
Another one where it's like, yeah, you want to get around that commander tax. Oh, I like this. I like Aminatu a lot.
Aminatu's really great here because you can just -1 Aminatu to exile another target permanent you control and then return to the battlefield under your control.
Loses all the counters?
Yeah, just any way to flicker the Netherborn Altar. I think this is going to be a card that you see a lot in Commander because the first time you play it, it's essentially like paying the commander tax because it's just 1 in the black. And then from there on out, you never kind of have to pay commander tax again should you decide not to. This is... like Crick is great because obviously anytime you're
paying life already.
Yeah. You're already trying to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of commanders that kind of want to be in your hand. So Phage is one of the famous ones. Phage is black, and 3 for a 4/4 legendary creature. When Phage the Untouchable enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. So you can't cast it from the command zone or you lose the game.
Yep.
It says whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player or to a creature, destroy that creature. It can't be regenerated. But whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. This is a fun deck I've played against a few times. People like to build it because it's a challenge. You have to figure out all these interesting ways to get Phage into play because you can't just cast it from the command zone.
Otherwise, you just instant lose.
Yeah, I died to Phage. Or no, Craig died to Phage the other night, but somebody put like an unblockable on it and hit it with it, which I haven't seen in years.
That's hilarious.
But obviously that wants to be in your hand, so Netherborn Altar allows you to get it into your hand so you can cast it.
Yeah, Hakan Stromgald Scourge is another one because it's a zombie knight legendary creature that says you can cast him from your graveyard, but not from anywhere else. So you would have to use Netherborn Altar, put it in your hand, and then discard it. I mean, these are like challenge decks.
Yep. Texamok is a card that you reveal from your hand. You pay a black, reveal from your hand, and you put counters on stuff. And then when you cast Texamok, it destroys all the creatures that have counters on them. Mm-hmm. Until now, it's been pretty tough to get that to work because in the command zone, you can't reveal it from your hand.
Yeah, you'd have to cast it for 6 mana, then find a way to get it back into your hand. Ink Eye, Servant of Oni, because it has ninjutsu on it, so you're going to want to get it into your hand somehow, play it, and ninjutsu it out.
Doesn't have commander ninjutsu like Yuriko.
Yeah, exactly. Atra, the Silencer, is one that when it deals combat damage, it technically shuffles into your deck, so you'd have to put it back into your command zone. So this way you can get it, back more consistently and do that whole thing.
I definitely think this is a card. Yeah, this is a more broad card. It can definitely see play in a bunch of different decks.
Yep. Okay, moving on. This is a card that I was really hot on when we first talked about it. It's Species Specialist, 2 black for a 2/3 human warrior. As Species Specialist enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, you may draw a card. So this includes your opponent's creatures as well. You could just play this and name human, and you're going to get a lot of card draw off it.
Yeah, just because they're always in games.
There's always some human around, yeah.
Yeah, I like this card because it doesn't have the lose 1 life that most of these cards have, like Midnight Reaper and things like that. And yeah, off of your opponent's creatures, and it doesn't say non-token creature either.
Yeah.
So it has a downside, obviously, in that it only draws cards for a specific tribe. But again, you're not going to put this in a deck unless you have a lot of that tribe. And then...
But this is great card draw.
Yeah, this is... I mean, it can be really, really strong in aristocrat-style decks or just stuff that has, is tribal, like Edgar Markov or something.
Slimefoot the Stowaway making a lot of tokens. I think, again, it's a creature. So very often we see non-token creatures, et cetera, et cetera. Slimefoot, Griswold, the Dreadstower.
Griswold's awesome, actually.
Yeah, plants, tribals.
It's a 1 black-green for a 3/3 Troll Shaman. At the beginning of your end step, each player creates a 1/1 plant creature token. And then whenever a creature token dies, you put a 1/1 counter on Griswold. So usually this deck is saying everybody's going to get stuff, but then I'm going to Pestilence, or I'm going to deal 1 damage to everything. And that whole time Species Specialist will be drawing you cards for their creatures too.
Yeah. People mentioned Najila the Blade Blossom because she makes little warriors, so you can name warrior. Endrick Star Master Breeder is also a really good card here for this because you make 1/1 black Thrall creature tokens. So Species Specialist, again, is just very flexible. It goes into a lot of different decks here. Edgar Markov, zombie decks, you name it. If it's tribal or even if you just know you have a lot of players that play humans and stuff. Because I could see a case where you're playing against your human tribal deck friend because they just made that new commander.
You're just like, I'll put this in there because I know you have a lot of humans.
Yeah, or maybe you do, you have synergies for itself, but you notice that they have a bunch out there and someone's looking to board wipe, like, well, let's play species specialist and name humans, because you're also going to draw off the species specialist because it is a human.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. It's a strong card in the right deck for sure.
Yep.
All right, the last black card is Titan Hunter.
Roar!
4 and a black for a creature human warrior to 4/5. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no creatures died this turn, Titan Hunter deals 4 damage to that player. And then you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice a creature, and you gain 4 life. So you can always make sure you've lost a creature because you can sack them.
Yeah.
Everybody else might just be taking the 4 damage from Titan Hunter.
Titan Hunter costs 5 mana to cast is my main downside about it. The effect is, I think, actually really big. But if you're able to play this on turn 2...
Let's say if it was a 3 mana 2/3.
Oh, then you're doing so much damage.
I wish it were a 3 mana 2/3 or something like that. But
This is
yeah,
one of
I
those
get why
games
they wanted to come out later too. Like,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
This does stop a board stall because people will have to start swinging creatures in, even if it's like, fine, I'll lose this small 2/2 this turn just so I don't lose 4 life.
Right.
But that 4 life will add up. It's each player's end step. So every player is just going to start taking 4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
Corvald, we've got written down here as a deck that likes to sack stuff a lot. Prosh obviously makes tons of tokens, sacks them.
My favorite, stick grafted exoskeleton on Titan Hunter, and then boom, you're doing 4 infects every single time.
turn.
Yeah,
Also, it can swing maybe. So
yeah.
that's
Just
pretty...
don't let it do 4 damage to you, so you infect yourself.
I mean, aristocrats decks in general, I think we'll consider a card like this.
Yeah.
There's a new card from Ikoria Lair of Behemoths you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Obosh, the Prey Piercer. It's 3 and then Rakdos. So 3 red, 3 black, or 3 black-red for a 3/5. It has Companion, one of those new lines of text here. You're starting
Talk about that in the set review.
Yeah, you're
Don't
starting.
get excited.
Don't get too excited. Your starting deck contains only cards with odd converted mana costs and land cards. So if you do have this as a companion card, you can play it on the side, not the sideboard, but on the side, and you can cast it once in the game.
You can also play these cards and just ignore the companion part.
And just play
put them
it
in
for
your
the card,
99
yeah.
or put it as your commander. Yeah.
Yeah. So Obosh says, if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead.
Well, that makes Titan Hunter deal 8. Wow.
Yeah, just play a Rakdos ramp deck and have Titan Hunter and Obosh.
Rakdos Odd Tribal.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see. All right. How do we think Black did here? The
Now
card.
remember, we got to put Deadly
right.
Rollick into the mix. So Deadly Rollick is their force of. It's the free if you have your commander, exile target creature spell.
I think we have a couple of really interesting cards here. Netherborn Altar, I think, is really powerful,
Yes.
but Dredged themire is the one that I'm really stoked about. And of course,
Species
Specialist.
Yeah. Now again, I'd say Species Specialist is narrow. Dredge themire, I think technically you could put it in any black deck or most of them because even if you're board wiping a few times, you're going to fill graveyards. But you want to be milling everybody before it's really, really good. Netherborn Altar is, one of these cards. And Netherborn Altar feels like one of those cards that's kind of going to have some combos with it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they haven't been discovered yet or we didn't think of them, but it's just...
people are going to play this card in general. It's very hard to say, no, don't play this card.
Yeah, it kind of works similar to a Mana Rock.
Especially if you have like a 5, 6, 7 cost commander.
Yeah, that dies once and you're like, I don't want to pay 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think black did a little bit better than red. I think it's a little more broad.
It's got 2 cards that you could arguably put in every black deck. Netherborn Altar and Deadly Rollick.
Yeah, and Deadly Rollick, I think, is going to be close to a staple for black.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give black like a B, I think.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Nothing. Again, if we're giving it an A, they're doing something crazy.
They probably did something wrong, obviously. if it gets an A and it's not white or red, I would say that would be incorrect.
Yeah, like, please, why are you doing this? We're talking like Nyx Bloom Ancient type stuff. We're talking like those anything that the green and blue has done in the past, 2 years.
But I think black came out solidly and has some cool tools and enough stuff that's broad too that you want to put in a lot of decks. So. Yeah. That's cool.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to potentially the most powerful color in the history of Magic. It's white.
That's a true statement about it being white.
Yeah.
Like, that's next up, not
like
the most powerful thing.
Things where it's like, I'm going to say 2 true things and 1 falsity. Name the false thing I just said. All right.
The riddle.
Yeah, it's a riddle. That's what it is.
All right. The first white card is Avenging Hunt Bonder. 3 white for a 3/3 human warrior with double strike. So 5 mana, 3/3 double strike. Whenever Avenging Huntbonder attacks, put a double strike counter on another target attacking creature.
Yeah, why does it say attack so much on that card?
Because white cards, that's all they care about is attacking. I think when they design these cards, they're in this weird world where they are like, yeah, but what if you attack 3 times?
Yeah.
Which just almost never happens in a game of Commander.
Ugh,
You're lucky to attack 1 time with a creature because you have to play it, rotation of the table, attack with it, rotation of the table, still have it and attack with it a second time. Yeah. So getting 1 double strike counter onto something is like still kind of unlikely.
Yeah, you have to swing.
And so much mana.
It's a 5 mana card. You know, obviously it makes sense. 5 mana 3/3 double strike is the kind of card you would expect to see in limited.
But this is a Commander set. It's not going to show up in limited. They don't have to worry about that here.
So
this could have been a 4/4. I still think it would be fine.
We'll mention the same cards we have here. Nesting Grounds, a way to move the counters around. Leech Bonder, a way to do it as well. Faint Transfer, these are all ways to move these counters of the cards. Otherwise, I'm not too stoked about this. However, it's the first instance of seeing a double strike counter, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, this next one is a lot more interesting. A lot of discussion about this card online. 2 and a white for Call the Coppercoats, an instant. It has Strive, so the spell costs 1 and a white more to cast for each target beyond the first. Choose any number of target opponents. Create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens where X is the number of creatures those opponents control. So for 2 and a white, it's 1 player. For 3 white, it's 2 players. And for 4 white, it's 3 players. And this is instant speed.
So 5 mana for 2 players seems reasonable. Once you get above that, it seems tough. And also, how often are you looking around the table and like all 3 of the other players have a lot of creatures?
A lot of creatures, yeah.
Usually 1 player does, and sometimes a second one has like a few.
Yeah.
So, but still, that's very powerful as an instant for 3 mana. You could potentially get. What are you happy with? 3 creatures?
I would say 3 on the minimum, but even then, it's 3 1/1s.
Yeah.
You know, you could
But
play...
at instant speed in a token deck?
Yeah, instant speed is definitely what takes this higher than what it would be otherwise, and the ability to strive it out and potentially get more. But 5 mana is a lot. You know, I think this card is great because it can stop the infinite Kiki Jiki Zealous Conscript sequence.
Sure, that's true. So and Deceiver Exarch.
Yeah. So
if you're in blue, you always get Pestermite now, so you can fly over the top of them. But yeah, you're right, because they go, boom, I create arbitrary amount of whatever of Deceiver Exarchs. And you're like, okay. And then they go to combat and you're like, exactly how many did you have though?
Yeah, because I want that many. I mean, there's a lot of cards that make, you know, X1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, but usually it's like X and white or X white. So this at least does it for 3 mana. You could get a bunch off it. If you're running your Coat of Arms type decks, token decks in general, Divine Visitation. We've mentioned that card 1,000 times.
Yeah, let me pitch you some cards here. Divine Visitation.
Love it.
Anointed Procession.
Pretty good.
Cathar's Crusade.
Ooh, nice.
Skull Clamp.
Oh, bingo.
If you have that package of cards in your deck, then Coat of Arms probably wants to be in your deck.
Yeah, Call the Coppercoats. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Coat of Arms. Call the Coppercoats. Coat of Arms is another good card with Call the Coppercoat, so.
What's neat is Sunforger can cast it because it's a 3 CMC white spell.
Oh, interesting.
So you can get that out of nowhere too. There are ways, there's play with this card.
I think this is similar to some of the powerful but narrow cards in the other colors. This is a card in token decks that will be good. And actually, white has a lot of token decks, so.
Yeah.
All right, the next one, we kind of gushed over when we first talked about it, and I've come down a little on this card. So
every time we keep talking about it, you're like, oh, wait, it's not as, okay.
I was just excited at first because it has all the right words on it.
It does.
But it has a whole bunch of other words. So okay, here we go.
That's a great way to describe it.
It's Cartographer's Hawk, 1 and a white for a 2/1 bird with flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, who controls more lands than you, return it to its owner's hand. So let's digest that part really quick. Has to deal combat damage. Mm-hmm. That player has to have more lands than you, and then it returns to your hand.
Yeah.
If you do all those, you may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library.
Okay, so it is white ramp in a way. However, it's incredibly conditional, and it's going to bounce itself every single time.
So the best you could ever do in the perfect scenario where you play this on turn 2 and you always have somebody for the whole game that you're able to attack is every other turn, you know, with no haste enabler. Every other turn you can get a land into play.
Yeah, and you still have to spend the mana to recast the Cartographer's Hawk over and over again.
Right.
However, it does fetch any planes, so you can grab a Mistveil planes out of your deck. You can get the Shocks, you can get the Dual Lands, the Have Lands, the brand new cycling Tri-Lands that just got Tricycle Lands, that people is aware what they're calling them, that got revealed with
Tricycle
Korea.
Lands, those are pretty sweet. They're in the main set. We'll talk about those in that review, but they do have land types on them.
Yeah, if you're playing mono white, though, you're probably playing Pearl Medallion, so that means white spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So Cartographer's Hawk at least comes out for just white mana. Same thing goes for Oketra's Monument.
I like Oketra's Monument a lot, actually. Makes it cost 1 colorless less, and you'll get a token when you play it. So, yeah, in that deck, you actually want to bounce things. So, yeah.
If you have God Eternal Oketra, speaking of Oketra, every time you cast a Cartographer's Hawk, you're going to get a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with Vigilance alongside it.
Again, you want to be bouncing creatures in that. Yeah.
I'm okay with this card. I don't think it's amazing anymore. Is it worse than Weathered Wayfarer? That was the question I put in.
I think it probably is, right? Because Weathered Wayfarer, well, that's a land to your hand. So it's like Weathered Wayfarer is more like land tax. I'd say it's card advantage. It's not ramp. Again, we always have to say this. Card advantage is when it goes to your hand. If it goes on the battlefield, then it's ramp. This one is putting it into play. Here's the thing. It has 3 downsides. It has to deal combat damage. Opponent has to have more lands than you. And it bounces itself after it hits.
Yeah, and you can't get around that.
Oh, this is why we said bounce lands and Lotus Field was because
if your opponents are playing those, then
no. If you're playing those, you'll have less lands in play, but the same amount of mana. Right. If you play a bounce lands, you bounce one of your lands. You have 4 mana available to you, but only 3 lands. So this is a way to sort of turn Cartographer's Hawk on because your opponent has, if they're on the same turn as you, 4 lands.
It's also a way for your opponents to turn yours off if they're playing the lowest fields and bounce lands, because now they have less lands and you need an opponent with more lands than you to trigger the Cartographer's Hawk.
I mean, in some percentage of games, the opponent that is you are able to attack, because it's a 2/1 with flying, like it's going to be able to attack early, but later on, maybe not. It's just going to be a coin flip whether they have more lands than you or not. I mean, if you're mono white, I think you can count on it more because you just never have more lands than everybody else. There's always going to be a green player or something. But in general, like, did it need 3 downsides? Like, what if it didn't bounce itself? Or what if it didn't? They didn't have to have more lands than you. Like, all 3 of those just add up. I think, like, it reads great. It's got all the right words on it. But the reality of the situation is, if you don't play this on turn 2, like, what are you likely to get? Like, you might not even average 1 land on the battlefield per game with this thing.
Yeah.
Definitely 2 is going to be, like, asking for a lot.
Yeah, I guess the way that I looked at the card is, like, you're always having it in your opening hand, and thus it's going to be better because of that. But,
yeah, because you draw Rampant Growth on turn 5. You play a 3-drop and Rampant Growth. It does it. Cartographer's Hawk on turn 5?
You just play it. It needs haste. Can't do anything.
Cross your fingers. Does somebody have more lands than you? Do you have an attack?
Someone might just let you attack because it's cute that you're doing it in white.
They feel bad for
like,
you.
Hey, cool, yeah, go for
white.
it.
Sure,
Whatever.
Come hit me.
I get a favor later on, right?
I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this card's gone down in my estimation. I don't think it's horrible, but this does not fill the slot that white needs. We always, or I've been saying a lot recently, white needs cultivate level cards, and it probably needs, like, and I'm not talking about just ramp. I just mean that level of card. It does need ramp. It needs some card draw. It doesn't need Teferi's Protection and Smothering Tithes. That's fine. Its top end is good. It needs the sort of meat, the backbone of the deck, the real, the real workhorse cards. And this doesn't, I don't think, compare favorably to Cultivate in any way. As far as, like, if you just move Cartographer's Hawk over to green or blue,
it's bad.
It's horrible, right? So that's just not fair.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we know you're hungry, so have a biscuit. We can't give you a full meal, but we can give you this biscuit.
And if you're hungry, you, like, ravenously, and you're like, you chew it up and you're like, oh, that was the best biscuit I've ever had. But they're eating lobster over there. Yeah.
And you're looking at them eating lobster and like, well, at least I have this biscuit. All right, next up we have Dismantling Wave, 2 in the white for a sorcery. For each opponent, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Or you can cycle this for 6 white.
6?
Discard this card and draw a card. But however, when you cycle Dismantling Wave, destroy all artifacts and enchantment.
Oh, okay.
Very cool. So that's pretty powerful. It does cost 8 with a Gavi Nest Warden. That costs much less, obviously.
Costs 0 with Gavi. And 8 with cycling means pretty hard to interact with. It's probably going to happen, like harder to counter and stuff.
Oh, incredibly hard to counter.
And you draw the card.
But even by itself, 3 mana for for each opponent destroying up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. You can even say no. You can say 0 and choose only the ones that are really problematic. So it does have a little bit of play there. It's more flexible. I think by itself, just with that text, it's not a bad card.
Yeah, for sure. Because you can compare it to like Return to Dust, which is 2 white for an instant. You exile target artifact or enchantment. But if you cast this spell during your main phase, you may exile up to one other target artifact or enchantment. So Return to Dust, 4 mana gets 2 things. This is 3 mana, gets 3 things.
Yeah, this exiles Return to Dust. Dismantling Wave does not. But again, similar rate.
Grasp of Fate is very similar again, but it's non-land permanent and it's an Oblivion Ring effect.
Yeah, I like Dismantling Wave. I think it's
neither of those other cards have a cycling option of like blow up everything.
Blow up everything.
Yeah, so that additional value I think kind of puts this in those class. And those are both like cards you see in a lot of white decks. The problem is those are cards you see in a lot of white decks. What is this adding specifically that white really, really needs, right? Do you need a third one of those?
Yeah, or do you want an option to destroy all of the things at once?
It's like marginally, in some cases, slightly better or worse, but we're really playing in the margins here. It's not like something that white really doesn't have a lot of. They have plenty of this type of effect. Mostly you're going to put it in the Gavi deck.
Yeah, but I could see players running it regardless, so it's not a bad card, but it's not fantastico either.
All right, the next one is Herald of the Forgotten, 6 white, 8 mana for a 6/6 cat beast with flying. When Herald of the Forgotten enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return any number of target permanent cards with cycling abilities from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Hey, that's cool.
Battlefield.
Yeah, so it doesn't count the instants and sorceries, so your Dismantling Wave, the card we just talked about, would not be coming back, but...
Cycle lands. Are like what you really want.
Lands are great, the ones that have cycling on them. This doesn't work as well at Tectonic Reformation because it's each land card in your hand has cycling, so once you cycle it doesn't have the ability anymore. But you could get your Decree of Silence back after you cycled it.
You've got 8 mana.
Spell,
So yeah, you're right. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Just like, a lot of little cycling creatures, Vizier of Tumbling Sands, and what's the one that has a stifle effect on it? The
Nimble
Obstructionist and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just 8 mana, boom, get 3 or 4 lands, 3 or 4 creatures. That's a pretty good rate. I mean, the problem is this is 8 mana, so it just sits in your hand doing nothing.
You also have to cast it. You can't like cheat it into the ability. Yeah.
But this card says cycling and will only go in decks that have a lot of cycling, right? It's just
Gavi's getting a lot of help. I don't know if Gavi needed the help, but Gavi's getting a lot of help.
I think Gavi probably wanted some cards for it, but yeah, those cards are just very, very narrow in that literally only a cycling deck will want them.
Yeah. One that can play an 8 mana card too at that.
Now this next card I do think is probably the best card of the bunch. I think it's probably the best card in white for the whole set, and I'll even throw in their Force of in there too.
I agree. I think this is white's best card in quite a while since Smothering Tithe actually. It's Verge Rangers, 2 in the white for a 3/3 human scout. With first strike, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and as long as an opponent controls more lands than you, you may play lands from the top of your library. And you can only do this if you legally can play a land drop.
Right, doesn't give you extra land drops. It's not ramp, we need to stress this, because it doesn't let you play extra lands per turn or if it's your turn 4, you can't get a 5th land and play off this. But it is card draw, because... Yes. Putting a land from the top of your deck into play is the same as if you drew that land and then played it, right?
And then you can look at the next card of your library. If you have top deck manipulation, you can always keep a card on there so you can sort of make your hand size permanently 8.
I mean, only for lands, though.
Only for lands, yeah.
It's like, what, 45% of a card per turn, let's say? If somebody has more lands than you, which again, if you need this card in your deck, means you're not playing green and they're likely to have more lands than you.
And white's never been able to do this before, so that's always exciting to see.
I do think this card is good. I think it's like the best white card in the set, probably. I still think it's not as good as they could make a card like this. I think like if you move this card to another color, it's just not that impressive. Red, it would still be good.
Yeah.
Green laughs at it. It's got 50 cards better than this. Blue, again, has a bunch of cards that are better than this. Black doesn't care about this much at all. So this is card advantage in a color that doesn't get much, and we'll take what we can get, and it is good enough. I still think it's good.
Yeah.
3 mana, 3/3 first strike.
Also, like, if you're playing, for instance, I think Jeskai is the perfect color shell to put this card in because red, white, and blue do not have good ways to ramp like green does. So Elsha of the Infinite's a perfect card because you're already looking at the top card of your library with Elsha, so you can cast those cards, and then maybe it's just a land hiding underneath.
Oh, yeah, Elsha gets stuck if there's a land there sometimes, too, so being able to get it out the way is really good.
Yeah, Mystic Forge is another card that's an artifact that lets you look at the top card of your library, and you can cast it if it's an artifact or a colorless non-land card. So, it's, again...
Well, also, it has the ability, you tap it and pay 1 life, exile the top card of your library. So if it's not a land, you can get rid of it and hope to get a land.
Experimental Frenzy, again, another card that cares about the top of your library. And, so there's just ways to get around this. Verge Rangers and Experimental Frenzy kind of overlap because you can still play those cards. But
this is also really good with cards that you're already probably wanting to play in your mono white decks because they give pseudo card advantage. So there's Top, Sensei's Dividing Top, and Scroll Rack, which are both cards you could technically put in any deck. They're not going to be great in some decks. Scroll Rack, I think, is a little overrated if you're not messing with the top of your library. But still, in white, again, a lot of times those cards get played because you'll take what you can get, and they do work well with Verge Rangers because you can just sort of be like, oh, there's no land there. Let me top. If there's one in the top 3, then I can put a land on top.
Yeah, I'm glad this card exists. Obviously, we all want it to be the best version it can be, but we're not going to get that. We get Verge Rangers instead.
It's good, and it fills a role, and I think it will go in a lot of white decks.
I hope it does. White needs the help.
Yeah.
Okay, the last card we'll be talking about here.
Oh wait, let's talk about how white. Oh no.
Oh,
wait.
That's right.
No, you're right. We got one more white card.
Okay.
My bad.
Yeah, we can't do white like that.
We got one more white card. It's not going to change the grade though.
It's 3 in the white for a 3/4. The Vitality Hunter. It has lifelink. It's a creature nightmare. It's for X white monstrosity X. So if the creature isn't monstrous, you put X +1/+1 counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. It's a nightmare. That's why I'm pretty monstrous. Okay. When Vitality Hunter becomes monstrous, put a lifelink counter on each of up to X target creatures. So this is actually really interesting. You can put a lot of lifelink counters on this. And
the rate on it's actually not bad.
Yeah, X white for monstrous X. So for 4 mana, you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and you can put a lifelink counter on 2 creatures, including Vitality Hunter.
Vitality Hunter already has lifelink, so you don't even want to do that.
Double lifelink, or you can put it on your opponent's creatures. Double
lifelink would be sweet. For every damage it does, you get 2 life.
Yeah,
that's not how that works.
That's not how it works. Don't listen to us, but listen to us because that's not how it works.
So all the life gain or decks that care about using their life or whatever, mostly in black-white, this is probably a card you would consider. I think you need also to simultaneously want to have a few creatures on the board because otherwise the monsters, you need to be able to spread counters around to something. Yeah, and you want to put it on cards that incentivize you to use life as a resource because you're giving lifelink. So, if you have Villa's Broker of Blood, Doom Whisperer, I think is pretty fun to put Flying Trample lifelink onto that thing. And then it becomes almost Grizzlebrand. Yeah, because you can pay, 6 life now to surveil 2-3 times because you have lifelink on it after you swing with it, of course. Karlov of the Ghost Council might want this kind of Carl. Might wants his card. I said Carl and so might wants his card. Ailey. There's a bunch of life gain type decks that care about how much life you have or when you gain life stuff happens. And I think this could be a player in some of those. Again, it's going to have to be one of those that simultaneously also wants creatures on the battlefield. Yeah, this card doesn't make me go, wow, white did it. But it's like, hey, this works in certain decks. Yeah, it's like, hey, maybe you might use it once in a while. That's kind of the space that you want to have commander cards in general, which is just like, yes, I can see this being played in a number of decks. I think the best commander cards, honestly, if they make them, you look at them as a player and go, this goes in this deck. And so you don't need to worry too hard if it's like unless it's white, where I want more like, hey, this goes in all the white decks. Yeah. All right, let's talk about how white fared as a color. Let's not forget we're going to also be considering Flawless Maneuver, which is the force of give all your stuff indestructible. Yes. Give all your creatures indestructible until end of turn, which I think is probably their second or third best card. Yeah, not bad. Call the Carpetcoats I like a lot. Cartographer's Hawk and Verge Rangers are the 2 cards that are like, hey, we needed white to do something else. I think the delicate balance they have to play here is that white isn't always played just as mono white. So when they make these cards, but it's true, right? Like if it's with green though, you just don't run Verge Rangers or Cartographer's Hawk. Not even close. Not even in a million years. You have other, yeah. Like, yeah, it's not even in the same league ballpark anything as the Oracle of Moldias, Azuzas, and everything else of the world. Yeah, I think you're just looking at these white cards that do the effects that white needs in a red-white shell or mono-white shell. Mono-white shell, yeah, because that's where... Or even like Jeskai. Yeah, that's where it's going to have the most effect. But I think white did pretty good. Otherwise, I would love to see them continue this down the year, right? We're in the beginning of the Commander year, so we have Commander Legends coming out. We have 2 more Commander Precons, I believe, with the sets coming up. 4 more. Zendikar will have 2, yeah. But they don't have new cards. They only have new commanders. Yeah, so maybe the commanders will have a little help there, but... I like that they are at least aware. The Cartographer's Hawk and the Verge Rangers signal to me that they're understanding that white's having an issue, and they're at least trying to solve the problem. Now, they're being tentative, I feel like, at the moment. Like, this is a very... let's give them a little help and see how that does.
They weren't so tentative with Smothering Tithe, but yeah, they are being tentative here.
Yeah, so I hope that they get a little more brave and they push it a little with white because it definitely needs the help. But so it's indicating to me that like we're headed in a good direction. But does this help white a lot? Verge Rangers helps a little. I don't think white got like a huge jump, but it's a good card. I would give white like a B-.
Yeah, I'll throw it somewhere around the B range just because I think credit where credit's due. At least we're moving in the right direction. If there was nothing in this set for white to address the things that we constantly talk about on the show, I would be visibly angry.
Yeah, we'd be complaining even more loudly, and we've been complaining pretty loudly recently.
I know.
We'll keep complaining, and hopefully
keep in mind that these cards are dealt, 2 years in advance or something, so our complaining is kind of being thrown to the wind, but at least we're complaining, and
everybody out there is complaining. Everybody keep doing it. It'll eventually... they're listening for sure. Then that's what I like about Wizards. Like,
just be kind with your complaints.
Yeah, be nice.
All right.
Every time I see a Wizards person, like I did that preview stream for the Ikoria thing when they announced it, every time I see a Wizards person... As I'm saying goodbye to them, one of the last things I always say is, "Hey, make some good white cards, will you?" I was like, "Hey guys, this is great. The set looks awesome." I literally said this to Mark, and I was shaking their hands. I was pleasure working with you. The set looks awesome. Really excited. Hey, make some good white cards, will you? And they laughed. They're like, "We know."
Yeah,
they know.
They definitely know. Yeah, I thought you were gonna say you said like "Hasta la vista, baby" or something, or "I'll be back."
There's this.
Like, wait, what?
I got it from because in hardcore history, there's this famous like. Rome during the Carthaginian Wars, there was this famous Roman senator, and he just wanted to go to war with Carthage, and he would just, like, any speech that he was giving, he would just always end it with, like, and by the way, we should go to war with Carthage. Like, he just did it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, like, this was about agriculture.
Yeah,
what?
No, by the way, we should definitely go to war with Carthaginians. And, like, it worked. Eventually, they did. So that's where I got the idea. I was like, I'm going to do that, but with white.
Nice. All right. Well, we have a couple more colors to talk about, as well as the colorless and land cards. But
we have the strongest colors in Magic coming up.
Yeah, we saved the best for last, apparently. But before we get there, let's take a quick mid-roll break to hear from our sponsors. Getting through a workday can be tough. Finding the initiative to complete that project or getting the energy to go work out can be exhausting without proper preparation.
And not just that, after a really long workday, having enough energy to get in that gaming session, that's important too. Today's episode is brought to you by G Fuel, the official energy drink of esports. It's a healthy alternative to the other caffeinated drinks on the market.
Yeah, using G Fuel is as simple as mixing your favorite flavor with water and you're good to go. There's 0 sugar, 25 calories total, and their formula has over 40 different delicious flavors. And like Josh said, it's a healthy alternative to the other energy and caffeinated drinks out there.
Now, if you're a little overwhelmed by all the flavor choices, like I was, don't worry. They've got all sorts of starter kits that come with everything you need to get going. You'll receive a great selection of flavors, and you'll get this cool shaker cup.
Yep, so get energized, stay hydrated. Head on over to gfuel.com, and at checkout, use the code COMMANDZONE, that's one word, to get 30% off your order, but only for the next few days.
Yeah, 30%. That is a huge discount, but it's limited time only. gfuel.com, use the promo code COMMANDZONE, one word. Take advantage of this great deal before it's too late. All right, we are back. We are doing our Commander 2020, our C20 in the 99 set review.
Woo.
Talking about all the new cards that aren't legendary creatures. We're on to arguably the strongest colors ever in Magic. We've got green and blue, and of course artifacts and lands and stuff. After that, let's start with green. Okay. I'll go. We've got Capricopian.
Oh, finally a card we don't need to talk that much about.
Yeah, green and X for a 0/0 Goat Hydra. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and then you can pay 2. You pay 2, put a 1/1 counter on Capricopian. Then you may reselect which player Capricopian is attacking. Only the player Capricopian is attacking may activate this ability, and only during the declare attacker step. So you go, I'm going to attack you with it, Jimmy.
Heck no, I want to pay 2 mana, put a +1/+1 counter, and send it at Mel.
That's right.
And then Mel's like, can go, I have 2 mana too. I'm sending it back at you, Jimmy. I'm like, I'm tapped out. Whoops.
It's a really, really interesting card.
It's Hot Potato, the card.
Hot Potato, the card. I like that. But there's not a lot interesting to say about it. It's one of those cards that it falls in the impetus cycle, like realm, right? Where it's like messing with combat, high variance.
good with X spell type
There you go.
decks. Yeah, there's a couple of cards that want that. Zexara, right? Can tap and X. It's a Goat Hydra. That's a cool combo.
It can be huge, but I think the thing is, I want my huge creatures. I want control of them because usually you're like, I need it to go at that player who's really scary and is the arch enemy. And if they can be like 2 mana, basically it can't touch me.
I wish the card had trample or something.
Yeah.
Anyway. It's okay.
It's a Hydra tribal, X tribal.
Yeah, I think it's fun if you're playing at a table where this could be fun, then play it because I think it could result in some fun times. All right, next up we got Curious Herd, 3 and a green for an instant. Choose target opponent. You create X 3/3 green beast creature tokens, where X is the number of artifacts that player controls. 4 mana instant, potentially make I don't know. I could see this making 6 to 7 3/3
easily.
Especially if you're playing an artifact-based deck.
What if somebody has a bunch of treasure tokens? If somebody has Smothering Tithe, you're just like, yeah, sweet, I'm going to make 20.
Yeah.
I guess they could sack them in response, but they'd have to have something to do with the man. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, either way, they're still probably going to have other artifacts out. If you get 2 3/3s out of this, I think this is a good enough rate.
And you're going to get way more than 2.
Yeah.
How often in any game of Commander do you look around on turn... You're probably not casting this on turn 4, but even if you did...
Turn 7 or 8, you're probably casting this.
There's always 5+ artifacts around. Soul Rings and crap.
I mean, especially, again, if you have the artifact-based deck, the Breyer decks, the ones that just are always playing everything as an artifact. They have the artifact lands.
Yep. And this is going in a token deck, so you probably got Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, and all that stuff, too.
Yeah, run this with an Aura Shards, and now all of a sudden you're blowing up the artifacts that you just copied.
That's awesome.
You just made your...
You literally blow up every single one because you've created one for everyone. Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
All right, the next one.
Wait. Mycosynth Lattice was the other card I want to talk about.
Oh, boy.
Every card is now an artifact, and your Curious Herd makes $1 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. That was it.
All right. The next one is Glade Muse. 2 and a green for a creature beast, 2/4. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, that player draws a card.
What?
So for every player this works, I'm sure you would only put this in a deck where you're pretty sure you're going to be taking more advantage of it. Like you've got a lot of instants. You've got Ori, Leyline of Anticipation.
Seedborn Muse, Wilderness Reclamation, things that let you cast spells on another player's turn because you have the mana now for it.
Yeah, just be real careful because it does aid other players. And so, but symmetrical effects, when you're sure they're going to be weighted in your favor, are often underrated.
Yeah, I would say, though, in our meta, this is not the kind of card you'd want to cast.
Everybody's playing everything.
And you, again, because you're the one that initiates the effect, you are 3 mana and a card down.
Right, you're giving everybody else a bonus that you had to pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Okay.
I'm definitely not putting it in decks. There might be 1 or 2 deck I would consider it, but I have Valkenori in every deck I play.
What's the kind of card where it's never play this against the Josh Lee Kwais of the world?
Never play Glade Muse against me, yeah.
Yeah, he'll be like, oh, thank you. I will draw an extra card every turn cycle, at least one. All right, next up is a Ravenous Gigantotherium. 5 green for a 3/3 creature beast. It gets better. Devour 3. So as this enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. Then this creature enters the battlefield with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it. So if you play this for 7 and get rid of 3 creatures, 3 times that, you get 9 +1/+1 counters on this card. When Ravenous Gigantotherium enters the battlefield, it deals X damage divided as you choose among up to X target creatures where X is its power. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Ravenous Gigantotherium.
If they're still alive after it, you've done something wrong.
Yeah, so again, if this comes in as a 12/12, then you choose up to 12 target creatures, and then each of those creatures deals its damage to Ravenous Gigantotherium.
Well,
and
you deal the damage as you want, so you don't have to do 12 creatures. You can just be those 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. This definitely will kill a lot of things. Obviously, you want it so that the thing doesn't die on the other end of it, but it's kind of like a creature-based board wipe for green.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's 5 green, and you have to have other creatures in play before it does its thing, because the last thing you want to do is pay 7 mana for a 3/3.
But there are a lot of cards that love Devour, like Throwmark the Insatiable is a card that wants to devour a lot. Mycoloth, Dragonlair Spider. They make tokens, things for you to gobble up when this kind of card enters the battlefield.
Yep. Okay, so I had a question.
Yep.
This or Azuri's Predation. Let me read Azuri's Predation, which was a green attempt at a board wipe a few years ago. 5 green. So 8 mana. Cost 1 mana more than Ravenous whatever. Azuri's Predation is a sorcery. It says, for each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Each of those beasts fights a different one of those creatures. So it deals kind of 4 to everything, but sometimes you get some beasts sticking around at the end.
I mean, at least you get a ton of 4/4s. it costs one more than Ravenous Gigantothermium. You only get one creature with it, and it's a very selective wipe that may actually kill the thing that you have. I like Azorius Predation a lot more, even though I don't love Azorius Predation that much either.
So both of them are not that great, but you like the not Ravenous Gigantothermium. I'm the same way. I don't think Ravenous Gigantothermium is that good. It's just very unreliable. You have to have other creatures. It's expensive. You can never just play it as a 7-mana 3/3, so you'll kind of have to devour stuff.
Yeah, you're getting rid of your own things, keep in mind, when you play it. So it's not that amazing. Azorius Predation, probably better.
All right, the next one is Sawtusk Demolisher. It's a mutate card. 4 green for a 6/6 beast, but its mutate is 3 and a green. It has trample, and whenever this creature mutates, destroy target non-creature permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. So it's 4 mana. If you have a non-human, it's Beast Within.
Yep, Beast Within can destroy creatures as well as just any permanent. But Sawtusk Demolisher can get rid of non-creature permanents, so that means lands. So that's kind of cool.
And I'd say a high percentage of time, my Beast Within is pointed at a land.
Yeah.
Gaia's Cradle, Cabal Coffers, Maze of Ith.
You want to be playing a mutate-based deck because you want to mutate onto this creature a lot in order to use the ability a lot, or you're playing like a Temur Sabertooth to bounce it and recast it over and over again. But it is sorcery speed, and it costs 4 mana, so it's not fantastic.
Think of Acidic Slime, which will do a little bit better than this for 1 extra mana every time. You don't have to mutate.
Yeah, and you can flicker that kind of card, and
point.
when there's a battlefield, it does the same thing again.
Yeah, I'm looking for mutate cards that you don't have to be in a dedicated mutate deck, but it's just hard to find them.
Yeah,
because you can't. It's hard to use them a second time otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the one-time effect that much, then great, definitely run it. But Sawtusk Demolisher is a card that was built for the Otrimi deck, and I think wants to be played in the Otrimi type decks.
Yeah.
All right, next up is a very exciting card for me. It's Selective Adaptation. 4 green for a sorcery. Reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Choose from among them a card with flying, a card with first strike, and so on for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, Minache, reach, trample, and vigilance. Put one of the chosen cards onto the battlefield, the other chosen cards into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. So 6 mana, potentially draw up to 7 cards and get one of them onto the battlefield.
You'd have to get real lucky with the keywords, but yeah, any card with a keyword on it is going to your hand at the very least, and one of them is going onto the battlefield, and the rest going to your graveyard. So it's green. Green likes graveyards. Going to the graveyard with just random lands and stuff could be useful to you. In the Cathrall deck, people have cast this when we've played, and it's been really good. Put something awesome on the battlefield and draw 2 or 3 cards. Is it good when you don't have a lot of keywords? Probably unplayable.
Yeah, unless you're running cards like Congregation at Dawn, which is green, white, and you can throw 3 creatures onto the top of your library.
You can guarantee you're going to do.
Yeah, what's nice, though, is that a lot of the Ulamogs and the Kozileks of the world have Minache or Indestructible, so you can use those cards, and they will come out with Selective Adaptation to treat them onto the battlefield.
It's true. You don't necessarily need a bunch of creatures with keyword soup.
Right.
Just one is
just
fine.
One, yeah.
Okay.
And it covers almost all of them except for Skulk. Rayami, First of the Fallen.
Where are you when I need you?
Darn it. All those powerful Skulk cards. But if you're playing a Rayami deck, this is the kind of card I think you would put in there. But even then, if you have top deck manipulation and you just are a creature-based deck and you have keywords on your cards, this could be very powerful. Again, it gets a creature on the battlefield.
One thing I thought was interesting about this card is it doesn't say creature on it. You would think it would. So there are certain lands, like Lotus Field has hexproof, Dark Steel, Citadel has Indestructible, there's a few others. So you could get non-creatures if they had keywords. There's some enchantments that have Indestructible.
Wow, this is a very
that dice rolling one that you played in?
I don't want to talk about that one. That one.
It has Indestructible, or no, it has hexproof.
Yeah.
So
play it. Don't play
you
it.
just have to count up your keywords. I think, again, you probably need 30 cards with keywords before this is likely to get you 2.
Yeah. But even then, 6 mana, because you're drawing the rest of the cards, which is pretty cool. So at the
you draw 1, put 1 into play.
You could draw, again.
And sort of mill the other 5.
Yeah. But you could get, again, like 3 cards with Death Touch, Haste, and Hexproof and put the Indestructible one on the battlefield and 2 go in your graveyard. So there is the upside on this is huge. You just have to make sure that you can get there with it.
I think because of this card, in the Cathrall deck or the Rayami deck, I would now put the lands that have those keywords.
Yeah.
Just because it's upside to be able to draw them with this one card. And, you could already just play Lotus Field in a lot of decks. So
yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. All right, the last green card is Slippery Bog Bonder.
Shout out to Good Luck High Five.
Yeah, shout out to all the Boggles fans out there. 3 and a green for a 3/3
10
human druid. It has flash, has hexproof. The flash is really important. When a slippery bogbonder enters the battlefield, you put a hexproof counter on target creature. Then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature. So not only does the creature you're protecting get hexproof, it also can grab all the other counters you've got around the battlefield. This is a great way, because it has flash, to protect important pieces. And again, you don't have to... I would hold this. Well, it's 4 mana. It's hard to just hold it.
Yeah.
But you can flash it in when it looks safe just to put the hexproof counter on, because it's a hexproof counter. So it's going to stay there on that creature.
Yeah, and then you can also move any counters from among creatures you control onto that creature if you have a lot of other, indestructible counters, Menachet counters, those sort of things running around. Then, yeah, you can throw them all on there. But even if just +1/+1 counters, in the Ishai Ojutai Dragon Speaker deck, if it's partnered with a commander with green in it, you have a huge, obviously, Ishai with a lot of +1/+1 counters. Rayhan, Last of the Obzon, is a good partner with that as well. Again, these are just sort of counters matters decks. It's good, though. 4 mana flash. It has hexproof itself, and you get hexproof on another creature. And the hexproof counter itself, I think, is just really cool.
Yeah, really, really cool.
It's a
Skullbriar.
Sticking on Skullbriar.
One of the best things Skullbriar could ever get is hexproof. You probably want indestructible and hexproof, and then you're just like set up.
This is probably the best. This one and the indestructible ones are the best ones for Skullbriar. But yeah, Chulane, again, there's many ways that you can bounce the Slippery Bogbonder back and recast it again. And
Chulane is a card that people have learned. Get rid of Chulane.
Get rid of it immediately.
That turns off the whole deck. Well, you could protect it.
Yeah.
Yarok.
Yeah, that's right. Yarok, you get bunches of counters now.
You get double counters. Also, Yarok is another card that, like, hey, people are just trying to remove that thing as soon as possible, because we've all learned in the Selvala Yarok, what was the last one? Chulane decks. The way you combat those decks is as soon as they cast their commander, you kill it. The next time they cast it, you kill it. And now you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about green as a whole here. So we're going to look at all the cards. And of course, Obscuring Haze, which is the green fog you can cast for free. Force of Fog. I really like Slippery Bogbonder. I think of all the cards here, this is the one that you're going to see the most play, just because it can fit into so many different decks. Selective Adaptation has a high power level, but again, you have to sort of build around it. Curious Herd.
Decent card.
Yeah.
I think all of this is pretty narrow, though. None of these are like staples or even close, which I think is good. I don't want green to get any more staples. They're fine. I actually think green didn't do great here, which, again, this is not a complaint at all. I think it's fine.
I want green to get a bad grade.
I think if green...
They're the star student.
...did poorly for like 3 or 4 years here, maybe we'd start to even out the format a little bit. If white did really well and green did poorly and the other...
Yeah, that's the balance they have to hit, right? Green can't do awful, but it has to do not great either.
Because green has just gotten so many pieces over the last couple of years, it seems insane. Every single set, it feels like green gets the best top 3 cards every time.
Well, let's not forget, green also has a bunch of commanders like Zathro and stuff that are very powerful.
Yeah.
That have green in them, so...
Yeah. So... I think green's actually a little weak here. Their best card, like you said, maybe Slippery Bogbonder, maybe the Free Fog, maybe Curious Herd. I don't think they did awful, but I'm going to give them like a C-.
I was going to give them about a C- too, C-C, which I'm very happy to do, by the way.
That's not a complaint, Wizards. Keep giving green C-. But yeah, I think this is all very narrow stuff, doesn't change green much at all, which I think is fine.
Good job, fam.
All right.
Moving on to our last color before we go on to the artifacts and lands, or I guess land in this case. There's only one in the set.
Yeah, we've already talked about it a bunch too.
Let's talk about blue. All right, first up is Crystalline Resonance. 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cycle a card, you may have Crystalline Resonance become a copy of another target permanent until your next turn, except it has this ability. Ooh, it becomes a copy of a target permanent. This could be a land, a planeswalker.
And it's until your next turn.
Yeah. Don't make it a planeswalker. It'll just have 0 loyalty.
Yeah, don't do that. But land's really good.
Yeah, land's really good. This
a lot of
like
artifacts is really good.
Mirage Mirror in a way, except you're doing it with cycling, and it's very narrow because you can only do it with cycling decks, really.
Yeah, true. If you're not a cycling deck, you can't even... Yeah, there's not a ton to say about it, obviously, because if it's in a cycling deck, I think you do play this card. Outside of being able to get lands and just whatever the best thing is out there. Also, it's very hard to kind of mess with you much when you've got any mana open, or with Gabby, maybe none, because it can become the best creature on the board.
Yeah.
So
maybe Azur the Enchanter cycling deck might like this because it's a 3 CMC enchantment.
Yeah, until Gabby came out, Zur was kind of the cycling deck you would see the most often because it can go get the payoffs for cycling because they're usually 3-mana enchantments.
I think this is a really powerful card in the cycling deck. Again, you're cycling for free with Gavi or very cheap in general, and then having it become a copy of a permanent is pretty cool. You can just get a guy's cradle, or really do a lot of different things with it, and you can keep switching it each time too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You switch it into something, and then they go to, like, if they go to creature remove it, you just turn it into something that's not a creature.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to come at. Yeah, I like it a lot.
I like it.
We should say this was one of the EDH Rec Cast's preview cards, and their other 2 preview cards were Dismantling Wave from White and Herald of the Forgotten. So if you want to hear more in-depth discussion about those 3 cards, definitely check out the EDH Rec Cast.
Yeah, and we're doing the post-production on their stuff as well, so it looks really slick and cool. You know, I was on Reddit and I saw the ones that they previewed. They had the little tab that they took it from the video.
Yeah.
Like, aha, look at that.
I know where those are from.
Yeah.
All right, so the next blue card is Decoy Gambit. It's 2 and a blue for an instant. For each opponent, choose up to 1 target creature that player controls. Then return that creature to its owner's hand unless its controller has you draw a card. That last part killed it. I was like, 3 mana for a bounce spell for 1 of each. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but then they're just going to say draw a card.
If it's really bad for them. And if it's not really bad for them, well, then it wasn't really bad for them, and why do you care that much?
Yeah, would you rather just play a divination if it could be at instant speed?
I just want to know what my card's going to do, because if you need cards, they're not going to give it to you, and if you need the bounce real bad, they're not going to do that.
Yeah. It's, again, one of those cards where we don't like it because you're giving your opponent a little too much control here, and again, there are also cases where, like, if you're playing a Tulane deck, or any deck with Enter the Battlefield abilities, all of those cards you don't want to bounce.
Yeah, true. All right. Yeah, you only usually use bounce when it's like, hey, I swing at you with Blightsteel or something, and like, this is going to save me. But this doesn't, because they go, I'll let you draw the card, now you're dead.
It is instant speed, so there's a little more upside there, but overall, not that amazing. Okay,
I don't think anyone's ever playing this card.
This next one's interesting. I hope people can find a way to play this card.
Oh, this next one?
Eon
some people will probably try it.
Yeah, I'll love to see it. I don't want to be in the game when it happens, but I'll watch it.
Sorry, say the name one more time.
Eon Frolicker. Frolic. It's an elemental otter. We can actually play this one. 2 blue for a 5/5 with flying. When Eon Frolicker enters the battlefield, if you cast it, target opponent takes an extra turn after this one. Until your next turn, you and planeswalkers you control gain protection from that player. So you and planeswalkers you control can't be targeted, dealt damage, or enchanted by anything controlled by that player. This is basically saying, I'm going to play this card, give you a turn, but on that turn that you get, you cannot do anything to me.
Right, but it's only you and planeswalkers, so they could still destroy your creatures and stuff, right?
Yes. You just gain protection from that player in terms of them doing damage to you, doing specific things, but they can still, Cyclonic Rift, they can still board wipe. There's a lot of things they can still do here.
Plus, they still get a land drop, they still get an untap phase, they still get a draw phase. That means you're basically giving them later in the game like 10 to 12 extra mana an entire turn. Yeah, on that turn, they can't use it against you, but when it comes around to their next turn, they can.
And they're like, thanks for the extra turn. Look at what I was able to do in that time. I think this is the best card if you're going to be like, hey, you're about to die, or you have the only answer to this situation. We have to have you take an extra turn right now. But that's just so narrow.
It's impossible to predict when you start a game of Commander whether that scenario will even come up in that game.
Right.
We know that's a scenario that comes up in some games, but it's not every game. And in which case, this is sort of a dead card or a card you don't want to cast in a large percentage of games. It's not like you can never face a scenario where this would be good. Mm-hmm. It's just, is that scenario common enough that you can have confidence putting this in your deck that it will actually do good stuff for you? And I think there's going to be just too high a percentage of games where you just look at this card being like, I do not want to cast this.
Yeah, you don't want to, and it's not a May ability either. If you're playing Ugin's Nexus, it might be fun because it says if a player will begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. So
you just get the protection?
Just get protection from a player? It doesn't sound that great either. I don't like it. I don't like the hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah.
I don't like giving my other opponents extra turns for no good reason.
Yeah, not a fan. I do like that they designed some interesting cards like this that you can always sort of be like, oh, but these other weird cards that eventually get designed, maybe this becomes playable.
And again, if you're playing a group hug deck, this seems like the kind of card you'd want to play.
There you go. All right, the next one is Ethereal Forager. 4 blue for a 3/3 elemental whale. It has Delve. So each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell pays for 1 generic mana. So if you exile 4 cards, you could just pay blue for a 3/3 flyer. It has flying. And it says, whenever Ethereal Forager attacks, you may return an instant or sorcery card exiled with Ethereal Forager to its owner's hand. So all the cards you exile with Delve, you could potentially get back by attacking with this thing.
If you're cycling stuff, if you just have a deck that has instant and sorceries.
Yeah, and you can like... 2 mana, 3/3 flyer, not great, but it's fine. You attack once, you get a card back. I don't know, a lot of ifs.
Yeah, a lot of ifs here. And again, you're playing this probably in a Sidisi type deck. Any deck that wants to mill a lot of cards into your graveyard. Tasigur, you can have a 2 mana.
But it only gets instants or sorceries back. You could exile anything for Delve. So you want a high enough volume. Actually, you don't. I think it's still working Tasigur or something because you're only likely to get 1 card back out of this thing if you're lucky. So just delving away 3 creatures in an instant is probably fine.
Get that treasure cruise back.
It's dangerous because if you exile away an instant and then this thing gets killed, that instant's just exiled away. So your Snapcaster Mages later on in the game or Archaeomancers, Mnemonic Walls can't now find that card because you exiled it with Ethereal Forager. Actually, that makes me not probably ever want to play this card because I have too many
the cards
ways.
You want back, you don't want to get rid of them in case someone removes the Forager and then you're just stuck.
Yeah, I don't want to be stuck in a situation where like I got to get an attack in with this thing. Otherwise, this awesome card is just gone now. I would much rather just use a Snappy or an Archaeomancer or something like that to get back the card, and there's no real downside. Like they can't exile my awesome instant in the middle of that.
Even if they like flicker your Forager, it comes back as a new copy and it won't see the cards it exiled before. So it's got a lot of downside there.
Yeah. I talked myself out of it. I don't like it anymore.
We often do that. All right, Nascent Metamorph is the next one. 1 in the blue for a creature, Shapeshifter 1/1. When Nascent Metamorph attacks or blocks, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. Nascent Metamorph becomes a copy of that card until end of turn. Then that player puts all cards revealed this way on the bottom of their library in a random order. So you are making this into a copy of the next creature card on your opponent's library. And you can choose the opponent. It doesn't need to be the person that is attacking you, that you're blocking, or the one that you're attacking necessarily.
Yeah, we talked about this in the upgrade video. They tried with this card. I wish there was a way to format it so that the attacks or blocks, or the blocking had to happen for your opponent before you could know what it was.
Right.
So they would have to take the risk, or that you could know what it was before you blocked. But both are in your opponent's favors.
Yeah.
You have to block and then find out what it is. They get to find out what it is and then block. That makes it like way worse for me. I'm just not very high on this card. There are a few things you can do, I guess.
Yeah, Griptide, Anchor to the Ether, Time Ebb, Noxious Revival, all are ways to put cards onto players' libraries, and then you can know what you're getting, basically. Tetsuko Umezawa is a card that allows you to attack with the Nascent Metamorph without it being blocked, because it's creatures you control with power toughness 1 or less can't be blocked, but that's only the first time.
Well, yeah, won't it change into something and then not be a 1 power creature and then they can block it?
Oh, it's true. It's when it attacks. It's before declare blocker
step.
I'm wrong.
That doesn't even work. Just plain unblockable, like Whisper Silk Cloak, I guess, would be fine with this, because the thing you don't want to happen is you attack with this thing and it turns into something really small, like a Landwar Elves, and they just get to eat it for free, and you just lost a card and nothing happened. And so you want to guard against that. At least if you have unblockable, like next time I'll try again and it'll become something maybe awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This card, again, I wish they would have put more onus on your opponent as far as like them having to make the guess or take the risk, but it's all you.
All right, moving on.
Next card is Souvenir Snatcher. I bet we can guess what this thing does based on its name. It's 4 and a blue for a 4/4 with Mutate for 5 and a blue. It has flying. Whenever this creature mutates, gain control of target non-creature artifact.
Hey, but for 6 mana.
It snatches souvenirs.
Ah, it's like a crow.
Yeah. 6 mana. You can just play Copy Artifact, which is like 2.
Yeah, I don't
Or
want to
Steal Artifact.
I don't even want to talk about this card. Unless you can find a way to cheat out its mana cost.
In a Mutate
less.
deck,
Yeah,
maybe?
in a Mutate deck, yeah.
Even then, like, I don't think Mutate decks are often going to be like, I mutate again onto the same creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to get removed.
Yeah.
Next up, Tidal Barracuda.
A Barracuda.
3 in the blue for a 3/4 creature fish. Any player may cast spells as though they had flash. Hey. Any player. And your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Huh.
A lot of people message me about this card or tag me.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Vidalcan Ori, but for the entire table, but your opponents are not allowed to cast spells during your turn.
Yeah.
So, but that includes instants, counterspells, so this is a protection card in that way.
And I think that's actually the main use of it. The fact that everybody gets flash, I don't think you play this for that part of the card.
No, I don't think so either.
Because that's really annoying when all players have flash. The thing I like about Vidalcan Ori and Leyline of Anticipation is I have flash and you don't. The fact that everyone has flash makes it... Well, that's going to stall a lot of games, right? Nobody can attack because everybody just goes, okay, I have flash, so I'll just pass the turn without doing anything.
Yeah, they're waiting until the end steps.
And everybody's like, well, I can't attack you with my creatures because you could flash in anything, so I don't attack, so I do nothing, and I pass because I have flash. So everybody having flash is kind of annoying. the good part of this card is the fact that it says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So if you have this out and you quote unquote go off, you're reasonably secure. Yeah, that they're not going to be able to mess with you.
They can activate abilities, but they cannot cast counter spells and all that stuff.
They can't even like remove the Tidal Barracuda at instant speed and then do stuff. Like you untap with it, you're pretty safe. That's the thing I think that is going to be useful for.
Yeah, Tidal Barracuda is interesting too because let's say I have it on me and you pass the turn to me. The person I'm passing turn to has to sort of take action then because on my turn, including my end step, they can't do anything. So it does mess a little bit with that sort of turnover, and that one person does not get the full effects of having flash.
We wanted to compare it to a card Teferi, Mage of Zhalfir.
Yep, 2 blue for a legendary wizard, a 3/4 with flash, and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash, and each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery.
So this only gives your creatures flash, but doesn't give everybody flash.
Yep, and it limits your opponents to only on their turn sorcery speed spells, which is kind of like what Tidal Barracuda does here.
It does cost 1 more mana, and it's 3 blue, so it's harder to cast. I do think Teferi's just way better at doing what Tidal Barracuda wants to do. However, the 1 mana does matter, because if you want to cast Tidal Barracuda, see if it resolves, and then still maybe try and like do your big play, having the thing that's protecting your turn be as cheap as possible is important.
If Tidal Barracuda had flash, I think it'd be way, way, way better.
Then it's probably too good because you flash it on the end step and they didn't have a chance to like,
go off.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That was blue.
Let's talk about blue. Let's talk about blue, baby.
We got to throw in the Force of Negation. It's a Fierce Guardianship. Yeah, they're free non-creature counter, which is their best card by far and probably the best card in the set.
You're looking at all the cards. I don't even know which one I want to pull out.
None of these are great. I think Tidal Barracuda is probably the second best card.
Yeah, sure.
Because these are all bad. I'm not playing any of... That's the only one I might play and I could see a use for. So,
I give blue a C-.
I'm giving it a D+.
Wow, we're going...
Shoot. Well, hold on.
The Force.
The Force all by itself is like going in most blue decks.
Adds a whole letter grade, right?
Yeah, I forgot. I didn't correctly weight it.
Okay, without Fierce Guardianship, it's like D+.
A D, maybe. D. Yeah.
With Fierce Guardianship, we're up
C-.
to C. Yeah, C-.
C-.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is fine. Again, it's fine. It's like green. Blue doesn't need a lot of help. It doesn't need to get
blue
staple
certainly
level
didn't
cards.
need Fierce Guardianship. I'll just say that much. They have enough ways to counter things. Don't give them another free way to do it.
Yeah, they don't.
Why?
We don't need another card that just goes in most blue decks.
What's the point?
Okay. Oh, I forgot to grade Crystalline Resonance in there. It doesn't change the grade at all because it's very narrow.
Yeah,
it goes in only cycling decks. Okay. So we're done with the colors, and we're going to move on. There's only a few colorless cards and 1 land.
First one is one that we just never liked in any of the precons. We always
don't like it, period.
It's Bonder's Ornament. We won't spend any time talking about this. 3 mana for an artifact. You can tap it to add a mana of any color, or you can pay 4 to tap it, and each player who controls a permanent named Bonder's Ornament draws a card. Great in the precon environments. Great if everyone... Okay, fine. It's workable in the precon environments because the whole idea is, hey, look, we're all benefiting from this thing, but you're still paying 4 mana to do it. You never want to be the person actually activating it. In general, interesting design, doesn't really get there.
There's too many 3 mana rocks. There's tons of them, and all of them have better upside than this card. Don't play this card.
Okay, this next one is just combo-tastic. Maybe the most combo-tastic card in the entire set.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do. So it's Cryptic Trilobite. It's XX for a 0/0 Trilobite. Cryptic Trilobite enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Cryptic Trilobite. Add 2 colorless mana. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. Okay, anytime you're removing counters to make mana, we know it's
especially making
busted.
2 mana. Ooh.
And you can also pay 1, tap the Trilobites, and put a 1/1 counter on it.
Okay, so obviously... play Hardened Scales, play Winding Constrictor. You're going to get extra counters on this. However, when you do that, you can combo it with Gave, Guru of Spores. You can combo it with Mareth, Will of the Wild, and they go infinite, pretty much.
Yeah, because the counters you're putting on actually cost less mana than to activate their abilities, and so you're just
gaining mana each time, and you're doing an infinite number of things. We won't break down exactly how it works, but if you have these decks, you know that this type of effect is very powerful.
Cryptic Trilobite goes infinite mana with a ton of stuff. Just add anything that adds counters and then costs less than the 2 colorless to then keep that going.
I mean, just Gave and a way to, give
and,
Undying, like Mikaeus, the Unhallowed, it's always going to come back with a +1/+1 counter because you're removing the counter to kill it, and then when it comes back with the counter, you're able to use that mana to make infinite things and just go nuts.
Yep.
There's a lot of different ways you could use that mana as well. Because it's colorless, it's a little more specific, and you have to use it to activate abilities. So a card like Bloodright Invoker, which is 8 mana, target player loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Or Essence Depleter, which is 1 in the colorless, to target opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. So you can use these things to sort of basically kill someone out of the blue with infinite mana. Una, Queen of the Fae, will do it with just an addition of a blue or a black on top.
That is the most interesting part about all these combos, is that usually you get infinite mana and then you kill everybody with, draw your whole deck in Lab Man or Exsanguinate or whatever. At least this time we're like, oh, but it's only for activated abilities. So then we have to come up with these other cards that still kill you with the infinite mana, but just they're new cards killing you.
If you play Prismite, you can pay 2 mana to add 1 mana of any color, so you can just turn that mana into
Gemstone Array,
anything you want. Yeah, so there are tons of different things you can do here with this.
Thrasios, famous one, will draw your whole deck. Now, you won't have infinite mana to cast all your stuff, so that's not quite as good.
Yeah.
Staff of Domination is a way to draw your whole deck too.
Yeah, and again, like with Mikaeus, you can just do so many crazy things here. You can sack it with Perilous Forays to
get all your land.
Pay 1 mana, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped. It just keeps coming back. You can use the mana, you gain mana.
Yeah, Mikaeus is super good just because it'll always come back with the 1/1 counter, and you can always remove the counter. So
there's a lot of things you can do here, yeah. Lampade of Death's Vigil, same thing. Pay a mana, sacrifice it to drain everyone. Thrasios.
Yeah.
Just get your whole deck out. So Cryptic Trilobite, this is a card you're going to be hearing about for a long, long time. I think it's going to be one of the staples of any type of decks that have activated abilities or play Mikaeus, Gave, Marath. All those decks want to have this type of card in there.
It seems fine, though. None of those combos seem like better than
what already existed.
Most infinite combos that are already out there that don't have restrictions about how you can spend the mana. Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one.
This one also might see a lot of play too.
Yeah, one of my favorite and more interesting cards from the set. It's Manascape Refractor. 3 mana for an artifact. It enters the battlefield tapped, but it has all activated abilities of all lands on the battlefield.
Whoa.
And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to pay the activation costs of Manascape Refractor's abilities.
It's kind of like a Nicol Bolas, but for lands.
Yep. Gaia's Cradle is the one that came to mind for everybody.
Cabal Coffers.
It copies your own lands too.
Yeah.
So if you have a Gaia's Cradle, this will be a second one. Or Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. Mm-hmm. That's another one. Cabal Coffers.
Also, this, again, because those are legendary lands, Manascape Refractor gets around that because it's just adding the abilities of the land. So you kind of can have 2 Gaia's Cradles on your battlefield if you play this kind of card. So very, very interesting there.
This is definitely a powerful card that's going to go in a lot of decks. And if you have friends or whatever, people that rely on certain lands, you can kind of get a copy of that land yourself for a lot cheaper than buying a Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, and I would pay 3 mana for a Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah.
But I won't pay the dollar amount for it.
Luckily, I bought mine 7 years ago or something. They were still expensive then, but they're crazy now.
Sanctuary Blade is the next card. A 2 mana artifact equipment. As it becomes statue, a creature choose a color, and the equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has protection from the last chosen color. Equip costs 3. I'm not playing it.
Why is it equip cost 3? I don't understand this card. Why doesn't it maybe keep the protection of the
all
last
colors?
2 colors chosen or something?
If it was 3 and then every time it keeps adding the protection, so eventually it could become for
protection from everything, which there are cards that do that and are not broken.
Yeah.
I just don't understand this card at all. It just seems completely unplayable to me. All right, so the last one is another sort of combo-tastic-y card. It's Twinning Staff.
Seems like a Josh Lee Kwai special right here.
There's so much you can do with it. It's 3 mana for an artifact. It says, if you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets for the additional copy. Then you can pay 7, tap the Twinning Staff, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, and you may choose new targets for the copy.
So if you just Twinning Staff a spell, it's going to trigger the first part, so you actually can get 2 copies for that 7 mana.
Right. So 7 mana sounds a lot better when it's 2 copies, even though it's still a lot, but still, sometimes, you don't have anything else to do, I guess. You can copy something twice.
You're just playing this in a deck like Riku of 2 Reflections, right? Where you're already copying stuff.
Riku's really, really good because Riku's activated ability copies a spell, and you just get to tack on additional copies. Also, Calamax, of course, is the deck it comes in. Ral, Storm Conduit, the Planeswalker we talked about ad nauseum in that episode. You had a cool combo with Turnabout.
Yeah, so Turnabout is 2 blue for an instant. Choose artifact, creature, or land. Tap all untapped permanents of the chosen type target player controls, or untap all tapped permanents of that type that player controls. If you're able to turn about with Twinning Staff, you're going to copy it, and then you can untap it, all your artifacts. So you can go infinite with this here, because you can
do artifacts and lands because you get 2 extra copies.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get all your lands untapped, and you copy the turnabout with Twinning Staff. Do
that enough times, float enough mana until you're only untapping the Twinning Staff, and now you start copying the turnabout for other stuff, I guess.
People like Wart the Raid Mother with this because it is a card that gives every red or green instant or sorcery spell Conspire. So if you cast it, you can tap 2 untapped creatures to share a color with it, and then you copy it, and you can choose new cards for the copy. So just lots of cards that copy spells. Twinning Staff it's there for you. It's an artifact. It's colorless. It's going to go in all of these decks, and it's not just red and blue that does this.
Fury Storm. Right. Another one that just instantly goes infinite by itself because it creates a copy of itself when it comes in, which creates an additional copy. And those copies can copy Fury Storm, which make copies, which make additional copies. And then eventually you can have like a lightning bolt or something thrown in there to just, once you have enough copies, copy that. Yeah. Look up those combos. There's a ton. Twinning Staff is a little bit nuts. Copying spells, for whatever reason, is more confusing because they all sit on the stack than like copying creatures. And it's slightly annoying that they're just heading in that direction so much with Ral, Calamax, this, and it's just like in game, I don't love it. Like
it's already confusing enough. Yeah,
Johnny Me likes it, but I want it to be Fury Storm. I don't want it to be like copies of Fury Storm because it just starts getting like what? Because when you start, Narcissus Reversal, I Fury Storm the Narcissus Reversal, I copy the Narcissus, and then it starts getting like, wait, what gets bounced? Yeah, exactly. I don't like that they're going in this direction a lot because it's just. You spend a lot of time in game just trying to figure out what the heck happens.
All right, we can finally talk about it as the card. Nesting Ground. Tap it to add a colorless, or you can pay 1 and tap it to move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate this ability anytime you can cast a sorcery.
So you move counters around, counters of any type from anything, target permanent.
Yeah, Vorel of the Hulklade is the counter commander, 1 green and blue for green-blue tap, double the number of each kind of counter on target artifact, creature, or land. Now you can have indestructible counters, hexproof counters, all sorts of different counters. You can use those with Nesting Grounds to move them around anywhere, but this is the one I really like. Yeah. The Saga deck got a huge boost here.
Because you can move the Saga counters off. And
the lore counters,
Or the lore counters, Or you could move, I guess, one on from another Saga to another just to get it to where you want it to be. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I like
you
that.
Can just keep redoing the certain Saga every time you want. And not to mention, there are lore counters that you can move the lore counters to. Mind Unbound is 4 blue for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a lore counter on Mind Unbound, then draw a card for each lore counter on Mind Unbound. So now you can add the lore counters from your Saga onto Mind Unbound. Whoa!
Saga deck.
Broken. Myth Realize, an enchantment that wants lore counters and becomes a creature based on how many lore counters are on it. So there are places to put it. Which is cool. But again, when you put the lore counter on, it also triggers that part of the Saga immediately.
I'm really excited about the Saga deck sort of slowly getting pieces and being a thing. And that's pretty exciting.
Nesting Grounds, put a hexproof counter on your Glacial Chasm. Win the game. Now they can't even get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, can you take the age counters off of it too?
I believe so, yeah.
My gosh.
Take the age counters off the Glacial Chasm so you can
once you get hexproof onto it or something, then you just move counters off every turn and you never have to worry about it?
Yeah.
You'd have to figure... You're still going to have to pay like 2
You don't even need to put the
minute.
hexproof counter on it, really. You can just take the age counters off.
That's true. That's a good point.
You can put a lifelink counter on Aetherflux Reservoir. I saw that online. I was like, that is the evilest thing I've ever seen. Just blam, blam, blam.
Yeah, as soon as it gets it, if you're at the life total, you just kill one person, gain that much, and then do it to the next person. That's pretty funny.
You can put a Death Touch counter on like the Planeswalkers like Sark and Dragonsoul because they deal damage to each creature.
Oh, you could move loyalty counters around too. There's probably some way to break that.
Totally. You can put Death Touch counters on Pestilence or Pyrohemia as well. And yeah, you can in the Planeswalker deck, this is really cool. You can move the Planeswalker loyalty counters around.
I did not think about the ability counters onto non-creature permanents. That's a whole can of worms. I know, right? That is so cool, yeah.
So divinity counters as well work really well with that which is taken, which gives indestructible, but you can't put the divinity counter on that which was taken, but now you can. I mean, this is a lot of mana to do all these things, by the way. Eric's Methes, you can make it wake up a little faster. Netherborn Altar, you can get rid of the counters on it.
All kinds of cool stuff you can do. Nesting Grounds is one of my favorite cards in the set because
I think it's my favorite card in the set.
Yeah.
It just, again, like, there's a paragraph on this page of our outline, whereas...
It doesn't even scratch the surface of the cool things you do. I did not think about ability counters on non-creature permanents. That is really, really cool.
Thank you, Reddit, for the lifelink counter on Aetherflux Reservoir. You guys are insane.
thank you, or
no thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess now we've told the whole world, so thank you, us too.
All right, that's all the cards. Real quick, I wanted to take your temperature, how you felt about the non-legendary creatures, all the cards we just talked about today. Overall, what do you think? How do you feel?
I'm going to give it a tepid thumbs up because we do have really interesting cards like Nesting Grounds. I think it's actually pretty cool that this is tied into the main set because it allows us, again, to play around a little more with the interesting mechanics introduced in the set. So it's not like Mutate's never ever going to be a thing. Ability counters aren't ever going to be a thing. Nesting Grounds by itself is, I think, one of the most interesting Magic cards land-wise that's been made in a long, long time because it just opens up so many possibilities. I'm glad that green and blue weren't super overpowered. I'm glad that white got some help. So I'm pretty happy about things overall.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like good. It's not amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't do this section for our set reviews for every set, and maybe at some point we'll have to go back and look.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to sort of put it in context of how it was in C19 and C18, and I'm guessing C16 was up there. But actually, now I'm thinking about it, that's our favorite commander set, but a lot of it has to do with the legendary creatures. So I think this is probably like right there with how the new cards kind of go. There's some good ones. There's a bunch of really specific stuff, and then some stuff that, quite honestly, like we're never going to see. We talked about them today. We'll never talk about them again.
Yeah, I'm happy that there are a lot of cards that are specific to decks because I'd rather have that than just universally good cards everywhere, unless it's a white or a red card that fixes the problems we talked about. So I'm like totally fine with Crystalline Resonance being the cycle card.
Right.
I don't need to have another blue card that goes into every deck.
In that vein, then, is it a little bit of a bummer that I'd say the two biggest staple cards to come out of this set are the Force ofs from blue and black.
Yeah.
And maybe white with Verge Rangers is the next closest, although that's not going in every white deck, just the ones that don't have green.
You're right.
I mean, that's a little bit too bad. I wish that if you're going to give staple cards, I wish that red and white were the ones getting staple cards. Like blue and black don't need cards that go in all their decks.
Yeah, especially because they're extremely useful abilities. Exiling a creature is something that every single deck needs to be able to do, and black just got potentially one of the best versions of it ever.
Yeah. But I mean, we want powerful cards too. We don't want a set with no powerful cards. So I think that it's good that they do exist. I just wish they would push those towards the colors that really need it. And
if anything, the ball is slightly rolling down that side of the court. So I'm happy that we're at least progressing and in what at least feels like the right direction.
There's some cool stuff here. There's a lot of niche stuff that I like. Nesting Grounds is really, really sweet. I like Manescape Reflector quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Bonder's Ornament, all-star.
All right, let's talk about our favorite non-legendary. Well, no, let's do most powerful first. What do we think?
Most powerful?
The most powerful. This is going to be easy.
Yeah,
I think we both think it's the same card. So.
I think it's actually pretty close between the two, but I think this one is still the best because it's, again, to win a game, you need to have this kind of card in these kinds of decks.
Yeah, so it is Fierce Guardianship, the Force of Negation in blue, the 2/1 blue counter target non-creature spell, and it's free to cast if you have your commander or have a commander. All right, then let's move on to the more interesting question, which is, we might already answer this, what our favorite card is. Not the most powerful, but what our favorite card.
Gotta be Surly Badger Sword name.
That's a good name.
And Nesting Grounds easily for my favorite. I think, like you said, Manescape Refractor is up there as well because I think that actually, for a lot of players, has become one of their more favorite cards because it allows them to balance the game a lot by getting a Guy's Cradle because it's a card that not everyone can play, obviously. And so that's kind of neat to see there.
I'm looking at Manescape Refractor, Nesting Grounds, and Netherborn Altar, kind of, I think.
Okay. Netherborn Ultra is fun too. I think that
it's kind of straightforward in what I think it's going to do, though. I think it's less fun. I think I'm going to go with you. Nesting Grounds. I think before you said the ability counters onto non-creature permanents, I think I would have said Manescape Refractor, but putting lifelink onto like an enchantment just seems cool.
Yeah, it
Pestilence
seems really
with lifelink and Death Touch.
That's actually really cool too. Yeah, you even need Death Touch. Lifelink is pretty sweet with that. Nesting Grounds I think is the card also we're going to be talking about the most.
Yeah, just anytime there's a counters. And there's counters in decks all the time, especially now that they've got ability counters.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about it a lot. All right, to the listeners, What is your favorite new non-legendary card from C20 that you're excited to put inside of your decks? Which deck is it going in? Is there any cards that you think we misevaluated? Do you think something's awesome, we thought it sucked, or did you think something is horrible and we thought it was awesome? Love to hear from you on Twitter, in the comments, email, whatever, Discord, patrons.
We are not the final say on any of these cards. Obviously, we did our best looking around the internet and in our own brains and around the office trying to figure out what is the best combos, but maybe you have something that we didn't think about. So please let us know. We always welcome that kind of discussion.
And then you need to go to cardkingdom.com/commandzone, and you can order the singles of these cards. You can order the precons. You can order just one precon, all the precons. You know, Jimmy and I, we get every single one every single year. Yep. There's a Ikoria Layer of Behemoths, the main set, which has, if you're playing with ability counters, you're playing with counters at all, you're playing with Mutate, you're really going to want some cards from that main set.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get that.
Like a Bracos. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I want that card.
You know you're going to get that stuff anyway, so if you just use our affiliate link, when you do it, you really are helping out this show, Game Nights, all of our content.
And of course, make sure you pay attention to their Twitter and website to know about any delays that are happening due to the current pandemic around the world. Obviously, all the companies that we work with, we love to death, but we're all equally affected by this. So please check that out to know so that your expectations are also going to be set. And while you're there on cardkingdom.com/commandzone, or if you are making it out to your LGS and want to support them outside of just buying cards, maybe purchase a UltraPro playmat or some sleeves or a deck box from them as well. I know a lot of LGSs are doing like storefront pickup, where it's like, hey, if you want to pre-order a booster box or whatever it is, you can also grab this from us.
They have like no contact, basically.
Yeah. And LGSs are definitely one of those very low margin companies that are, you know, they are doing it because they love the game, not because they're trying to make a ton of money. And so your support really goes a long way, and buying UltraPro product goes a long way for us as well. So big thanks to them as always for sponsoring the show.
Yeah, and these cards, you know, in this time where especially, you know, a lot of people out there we know are missing work or have had to tighten their belts, you don't want your cards to get dinged up, messed up, the value to drop on them at all. So you want to protect them.
Totally.
Make sure you use UltraPro stuff. They are the best at protecting your stuff. All right, no end step because this episode is already gigantic. It's a million years long.
I'm only coughing because I've been talking for 3 hours straight.
Yeah, I'm like, my throat is starting to get really dry because we were just talking and talking. Got to talk about a few more people here, though. First of all, our editing, graphics, and logistics team is Ashlyn Rose, Craig Blanchett, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Jake Boss, Josh Murphy, Alfred Estaca, and Sam Waldo. Thanks to everybody who's working so hard to get all this bonus content out and all these really long episodes out to you on time.
Yeah, and big thanks as always, Geoffrey Palmer, for doing the Living Card animations. You can find him on Twitter at LivingCardsMTG. He actually just did a new one and was like, still got it, and ahead on this. Yeah, so if you want to check out those cool animations, they're behind us on set, and they start and end the show at youtube.com/theCommandZonePodcast.
All right, everybody, we still have the Ikoria Layer of Behemoth's new legendary creatures to look at, and then
the set
review. So there's still a lot coming up. Make sure you've subscribed to our channel, hit that notification bell so that you are let known that you're told when all our videos come out.
Oh, the bell tolls?
That's not for whom the bell tolls.
It tolls for you, the subscriber. Yeah, you want to be the first people to hear about these cards and talk about it with your friends and pretend like you came up with the interactions yourself.
That's right.
That's what I used to do with videos. I was like, hey, guys, you know you can do this? I'm like, wow, how'd you know that? I'm like, I just came up with it.
Yeah.
Maybe watch a video or two.
Now you do come up with it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.